Good evening and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. However, this is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. And finally, each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Crystal. Good evening. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given either written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. When you testify this evening, it's important to give your name and address. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, and neighborhood association presentations and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Here.
Squires, Blanchard,
Here.
Moore, here, Gillespie,
Here.
Finfrock, Danley,
Here.
Mooney,
Here.
6 present, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, pretty short agenda tonight, but we have to hear quite a few of these items. We do have a few things for consent. Up first, without objection, I'd like to place the minutes from our work session and our commission meeting on September 11th of 2023. And also without objection, I'll place item A on the consent agenda. This is PUD 21-56. The applicant is Greg Chatterton. The address is 3520 North Jackie Lane. This is a time extension for a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 5 units on 0.35 acres in an R2D zone. So again, without objection, I'll place that on consent. And then moving ahead on our agenda, we have one new business item eligible for consent, and that is item number 5. This is CAR 23-15, Argus Consulting. Project address is 220 West Gowan Road. This is a rezone of approximately 125 acres from M1 to M2. That's light industrial to heavy industrial. Along with that application, we have CUP 23-50. Again, Argus Consulting at 220 West Gowan Road. A conditional use permit for bulk storage of flammable materials on 125 acres in a proposed M2 zone. And is the applicant of these items present tonight? Great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay, please let the record show that the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. Is there anyone in attendance tonight hoping to testify in opposition to this item? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item 5 on the consent agenda. And with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
make a motion that we approve the consent agenda inclusive of the meeting minutes and work session minutes from the September 11th meetings. Item number 1, PUD 21-56, a time extension for a conditional use permit located at 3520 North Jackie Lane. And item number 5, A rezone and conditional use permit, items CAR 23-15 and CUP 23-50, both located at 220 West Gowan Road with the respective staff reports.
Second,
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
it's item A,
it's item
It's
A.
item A. yes.
Correct. Yeah.
not item 1.
Blew it.
So PUD 2156 is item
Thank
A.
you.
Second,
Okay, very good. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Gillespie. Any further discussion? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
yes.
Moore,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Danley.
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, back to the top of our agenda then. We're going to start with item number 1, which is CZC 23-119, Tapson's Tree Service LLC. This was deferred from last week's meeting. The address is 10832 West Edna Street. This is an appeal of the planning director's decision to deny a home occupation request on 0.18 acres in an R1C zone. We're going to hear from staff first, Mr. Matt Dennis.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is an appeal of a planning director's denial of a home occupation on 0.18 acres in an R1C zone located at 10832 West Edna Street. On April 13th, 2023, a code compliance case was opened for the prohibited use of the subject property as a tree trimming business, noting multiple zoning code violations that are summarized on your screen. On August 15th, 2023, the planning director issued an administrative denial for a home occupation application for a home-based tree service business, concluding that the use has negatively impacted the surrounding development at a greater intensity than what is intended for a home use. And on August 25th, 2023, the applicant appealed the planning director's denial of the home occupation. The grounds of appeal are summarized on your screen and within the project report. The applicant contends that the nature of the findings were misrepresented within the home occupation application. In response, they provided explanations and corrections to adjust these findings. The applicant states that employees no longer meet on site, but rather pick up and prepare trucks to meet at the first job site of the day. The location of the trucks that are being picked up was not specified. The use detailed within the original letter of intent and later the appeal memorandum effectively described the same use, which is the residence being utilized as a dispatch center. The applicant contends that only 321 square feet of the property is dedicated to the business, consisting of an office and a garage within the residence, both of which are used for administrative tasks and maintenance of the equipment. The applicant contends that materials associated with the business are not being stored on site and that the photographed piles of chopped wood are for personal use. Site photos show all yards of the subject property are being used to support the business with heavy equipment, including a wood chipper, utility trailer, mini skid steer, being stored within the front and side setbacks and in non-compliant structures, as well as discarded debris, including stumps and chopped wood being stored in the front yard, all of which is visible from the street. The applicant states that they have taken steps to designate adequate parking spaces elsewhere from the subject property to accommodate employee parking with additional space intended to accommodate visitors. The location of the off-site parking space was not specified. Maintaining the required off-street parking spaces for the residents is required by the development code. Due to the garage being used as part of the business and due to the dimensions of the driveway and western side of the house not being able to provide adequate off-street parking for the residents, it cannot be justified that parking, along with the storage of heavy equipment or debris, can be located outside of the required setbacks. Further, additional site photos from code compliance show vehicles and equipment being parked in varying locations nearby in the neighborhood. The applicant stated that they have modified their storage areas to be compliant with code. As previously mentioned, the newly proposed storage location of materials and/or supplies is within the required interior side setback and therefore non-compliant. This is evidenced by the site photos provided by the applicant, as well as code compliance and the site plan. The current and proposed layout of the site shows external changes that would make the dwelling appear less residential and therefore is prohibited. Multiple forms of public opposition have been received, which mainly focus on the safety concerns due to heavy equipment and vehicles being parked on the street and blocking clear vision triangles, as well as noise generated from the site. It has been demonstrated that the proposed use operates with a greater intensity than what is intended for a home occupation use and will negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. The following approval criteria for allowed home occupations has not been met. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of the appeal. And I will stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. Please come up, right up to the podium. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Jordy Tapson, and I am a representative of Tapson's Tree Service. I'm appealing the denial of our home occupation permit because for several reasons, and I wanted to quickly just outline the warnings for the code violations that were given to us and our corrections to those. Basically, that began with a couple recommendations for us to move the business, not store materials and products of production of wood products there at the house, and then we couldn't openly store wood and logs, branches, and or pallets. So I wanted to specify that first and foremost, the house located at 10832 West Edna is our home. It's will always just be our home first. The work that's done for our business there at the house is basically just me in my office. I run the business side of the business and my husband Riker is the operations. He's the arborist, and him and his partner Chris manage a crew that go to other residential homes and do their work there. When it comes to the wood products, I do have a woodworking hobby, and I do it from time to time, mostly just during Christmas to make Christmas gifts for our family. But other than that, there's no other wood products being stored. And then the firewood is for personal use, and we keep that under 200 square feet according to code. And that's also been checked by the code compliance officer as well. The landscape materials that were referenced that were stored in the front yard, we are actually renovating our backyard. Currently, it is all dirt. And as you can imagine, during the winter, it gets very muddy. So, we had some mulch in our driveway, laid down in our driveway, and then we're moving it into the backyard because it can't be driven back there. So we had that. And then there was, during this application process, there was a pallet of bricks delivered for a 2-foot retaining wall in the backyard, which is also code compliant. And so yeah, so we basically would, the work that's done there is me inside in my home office, dealing with clients and whatnot. A couple of the complaints we've had and we addressed are the vision triangle right there at the corner of Five Shire and Edna. I know that was an important one. Several people mentioned it. So, and when we were doing the notification of our application to all the neighbors, a few people had said something to us. So we made corrections and no longer park, within a certain area, within that vision triangle of Five Shire and Edna. And our commercial vehicles are also located off-site now. So, and no longer do we have our crew members meeting at the house and dispatching from there. They meet at the trucks because they need those for the day. And dispatch from there. So the only employee that ever comes by the house is a personal assistant of mine that helps me with not just Tapson's Tree Service, but the house and other things. Most recently, the wedding planning. So, and she rarely ever parks her car there. Normally, she gets dropped off at the house to work, and she's part-time. So. Yeah, so some of the requirements for our home occupation, according to the code, were, just to name a few, materials cannot be stored there. And like I said, most materials that are ever there are for our interior and backyard renovations. we don't have more than a couple deliveries, in a week. Our employees don't meet there in the mornings. We have Riker's partner, Chris, comes by the house quite often, but he's also Riker's best friend. So he's always at our house. And then like I said, the commercial vehicles are stored off-site now and no longer at the house. When they do come by the house, they're parked there briefly across the street or in the driveway, and then they're returned to where we store them during the night. Another complaint was noise. And I'll be the first to admit that, I am not a fan of diesel trucks nor do I like my husband owning a diesel truck, but he does. And that's his personal vehicle, is a truck. And we be sure not to start it before 7 a.m. and not after 10 p.m. on most every night. So we can't help that we have a diesel truck as a personal vehicle, but our commercial vehicles, we don't start those in the mornings there at the house. Chainsaws. I did read one of the complaints, specified that we were running chainsaws from dusk till dawn, and that just can't be, because if the guys were at the house running chainsaws, we wouldn't be making any money. They need to go out to make money. So, and then, like I said, the dust, we were doing the backyard renovation, so there was a lot of dust and debris with that. And so, and I obviously I would profusely apologize to our neighbors for that, but I prefer not to have a dirt backyard all winter again, but especially with 2 dogs. And then we foster animals for the Humane Society, most of the time dogs. And so they do sometimes make some noise. I don't know how much time I have. The equipment that's stored at the house now.
Yeah,
my time?
10 minutes total. Your clock's
Okay.
right up here. So you got
Oh,
4 minutes
thank
left.
you.
Yes.
The equipment that we do have at the house, we currently have a skid steer and a non-working chipper that are both owned by my husband personally. And then we use them for the backyard renovation. And that's again during daylight hours. So that is neither here nor there with the business. A lot of these complaints, at least there's 3 of them to be specific, were by one specific neighbor, and she happens to be right next door to us. And I feel like we can't do much about the backyard renovation for the time being until we're finished with that. Everything is that we're building back there, like the retaining wall is code compliant. But there, we're not, I don't think that constitutes for us to, lose our ability to run our business out of our home, because we're just trying to make a living, really. Riker and I also have been planning our wedding for the last 1.5 years. We just got married 2 weekends ago. So there was a lot to do with that as well. We did most of our, decorations and things for the wedding there at the house, built the backdrop, all that stuff, the pergola. So there was a lot of building of that stuff going on. But like I said, we've already been married, and hopefully we don't have to build anything else for a long time. So another complaint was or another piece of a complaint included was the smell of diesel. And again, I'm not a fan of the diesel truck, but my husband does own one personally for his personal vehicle. So there's not much I can do about that. We don't store any diesel chemicals, anything out of the norm of any residential home. He does work on his truck from time to time, because if you ask me, that truck is not worth it. I wish he had never bought it, but he does work on it pretty often there in the driveway, but that has nothing to do with our business either. So, that even if we didn't get our home occupation permit, he would still be working on his truck. And he'd still have his chainsaws at the house, because that's what he uses for a living, to make a living. So, I'm, to be frank, some of these complaints are more personal and really have nothing to do with the business. the things that were not code compliant and that did have to do with the business, we've definitely made corrections on to stop those from happening. Riker and I are both not only new business owners, but we're also new homeowners. This is our first home that we've ever owned. And so there's a lot to learn when it comes to following, city code and whatnot. So, and definitely we've been learning. And as soon as these complaints were brought up to us, we made those corrections immediately. And we've done our best to stay within code. And I hope that you guys, hear our appeal just because at the end of the day, we're just trying to make a living, and it'll be very difficult for us if we'll have to move the business offsite. It'd be a lot in our, expenses, a lot more expenses monthly. So we're hoping that you guys can listen to our appeal, and if you have any other questions on specifying what corrections we've made, we are completely willing to answer those or make any additional corrections as well.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Let's see. We'll see if we have anyone from the West Valley Neighborhood Association present. Okay, doesn't look like that we do. So we'll go ahead and open this item up for questions by the commission. Yeah. We're going to do, we'll do testimony right after we do these questions. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mooney.
I got a question for the applicant about equipment maintenance. So the way I understand, so I think you need to come up to the podium.
Yeah, you can come back up. I
Yeah.
suppose just for clarification too, they are the applicant and the appellant in this case. So just a point of clarification.
So in our testimony package, the garage is described as your shop. And
I would more describe it as my husband's office. His desk is out there, but he does other things like, hobby welding and things like that. That's
okay,
has
so
something, yeah.
so how are the chainsaws and the chippers maintained for the business? Are they maintained in the shop or elsewhere?
Normally, I mean, if it's like an oil change or something like that, we'll bring it to a mechanic. We have a mechanic out in Nampa. And then we have another gentleman that comes up from Marsing that'll work on our stuff if it ever breaks down. Hopefully we don't have that very often, but when we have had that, we had them come to the house and made those repairs. There was a yellow chipper that's in the pictures. That one is not currently working. And we're actually trying to sell it. We're, get rid of it because it's just a lawn ornament right now, to be frank.
So how do you, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
How do you repair equipment for the business?
Well, like I said, we either bring it to the gentleman in Nampa to his shop where he has, his tools and everything. Or, if it's maintenance type things like a oil change or something, we might do that quickly in the shop, but, or we bring it into the Loop
Okay.
Center down the street from
Great.
us.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, John. Commissioner Daly, did you have?
Sure, Commissioner, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
So this is probably a question to our staff as much as anything. I'm just trying to make sure I follow the bouncing ball on the parking side of things, because what I'm reading, I believe, is that the required off-street parking is satisfied by the garage, but because the garage is being utilized for the business, the applicant or appellant, whatever the term is here, is also claiming that the side yard and other places are being utilized for parking, but in the staff report, it says it's never was officially sort of determined where that's to occur. So I was hoping you can clarify a little bit of that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, based on the submitted documentation, it appears that the garage is being utilized more so on that maintenance side, and not so much that being used as to store the off-street parking. There was no indication that any vehicles are being parked in there. And then to touch on the side of the house, I believe it's a 15-foot side setback. So even if there was a parking pad within there, it would still be non-compliant. It would still be encroaching into that side setback.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to that? I mean,
When you say off-street parking, are you saying the required parking that we're supposed to have, our car is not parked on the street, basically?
correct.
And not visible? Is that what you're saying?
Well, our code requires a certain amount of parking stalls be provided
Right.
on site, not on the street, right?
Right.
And so the garage satisfies that. So the city is contending that because you're operating out of your garage,
Mhm.
you're utilizing other parts of the parcel for parking, including this side setback, which is a requirement to maintain. So by parking things in that space, that setback is no longer satisfied.
I see what you're saying. So we don't park any vehicles in the side yard. Our personal vehicles are, when they're working, are normally in the driveway right in front of the garage. And then Riker does move his truck into the garage on most occasions, but because of his, welding equipment and things like that he does on, as a hobby, I can't fit my Highlander with his diesel truck in the garage. So I do park in front of the garage in the driveway.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So I think the staff report touches on this, but it says that the location of the vehicles and the equipment storage currently is unclear. So if you don't mind me asking, where are the other commercial vehicles and equipment stored? Are you renting a space
No,
elsewhere?
we're not currently renting a space because expensive. We're coming into our off season where we don't work. So we can't add more monthly expenses to our accounting right now. But right now it's parked with the permission of several parking lot owners in the area. We do move it, between several places, but it's technically, I guess, public parking. So we move them.
Good. Matt, question for you, for staff. When was the last, do we have a date of the last time a code compliance officer was dropped by the site?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I believe it was sometime in August was the last time that I have talked to or had that confirmation with the code compliance officer, in which she uploaded site photos as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay. Any other questions for anybody?
I'd like to add just to that last bit,
Okay.
that in August, during her last visit, it was right before our wedding, and we had, like a pergola and a backdrop and stuff, in the yard for our wedding. But those are obviously, we don't use those anymore, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any other questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, no, go ahead. We'll go ahead and open up this item for public testimony now at this point. So anybody that'd like to testify on this item, please come up to the podium here. And before you start your testimony, please give us your name and address for the record. And everybody gets 3 minutes to testify.
My name is Carol Lisi Rodriguez. My husband and I live at 4022 North Five Shire Avenue, Boise. We are directly to the side of Tapson's Tree Service. And I am writing these responses from the appeal of Tapson's Tree Service submitted on September 12th, 2023. Tapson's business on the property is not limited to administrative services. The front yard is not always groomed. They perform work tasks at any time it suits them, day or night, and are not conscious of noise or odor because equipment and fuel are used at any time. There is little organization in the equipment, including utility trailer, 2 trucks, 1 bucket truck, a chipper, a bobcat, are maintained in the driveway of the residence at any time. Tuesday, 10/3, both trucks were in the driveway of the residence or on the street. The chipper was in the driveway on 10/4. The chipper was started during the morning hours about 8:30, and they're very loud. These were, I assume, for maintenance of all the equipment is done on the premises. Yesterday afternoon, Sunday, 10/8, the chainsaw was going again. Whether it's a hobby or not, the chainsaw was going on Sunday afternoon, right on the other side of our fence. We put some dinner on our barbecue, and as soon as we settled in on our patio, the blowers started and the dust was once again in our faces and in our food. There is no well-maintained, streamlined, or organized workflow. Business operations are not conducted in accordance with city regulations. Repair and maintenance done on the premises of the residents is in the driveway, noisy and loud at all hours. The circus tents, which are about 40 feet in length and 10 feet in height, are directly behind our fence in our backyard and are used for storage of most anything and everything. Placement of any equipment behind the fence, our fence, is directly next to our backyard. The storage behind the tents and the noise from the equipment stored in them are heard in our house. There is an old non-working yellow rusty chipper under one of the circus tents. We have always left our windows open in the fall and spring, and we cannot leave our windows open in our sunroom and our bedroom in the morning or the evening and still hear our TV because the noise is so loud. We built our sunroom on the east side of our home years ago and have enjoyed coffee and meals on our patio until Tapsons moved their business into our residential neighborhood. The circus tents are not to code, and we cannot enjoy our backyard because we never know when the equipment will be started or maintenance happens. Noise, dust, dirt, and fumes from spray paint cans to machinery leave us with nowhere to enjoy our home. All we can see from our sunroom are the circus tents. I would like them removed. They have not been considerate of their neighbors, and if I were to have to sell my home with that kind of business or circus tents behind the fence, I would not get what the property is worth. It is false when they say there are no tools or equipment on the property that exceeds normal household equipment or tools. Not everyone owns a bobcat or a stump grinder for normal household use. And if we need one, we have to rent them for the day. Administrative work is not the only work done at the residence or in the garage.
I'm sorry, Miss Lisi Rodriguez. I'm sorry, we're over our time. I apologize if we ran a little long.
That's okay.
If you can just wrap up real quickly for us, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The trucks, when they have jobs, still meet at the residence in the morning as a dispatch center. And if they no longer meet there, why are the trucks always at the residence on most mornings? This will always be the dispatch center because the residence is being used as the home of the business. This business belongs on an acreage or industrial coded property. Please deny this application and appeal for a home occupation permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please come on up.
I am an employee of
You can pull that mic up. There you go. If you can start with your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name's Caden Tapson. I live 13165 North Andes Gulch Road up in Hidden Springs. I am an employee of Rikers. Yes, that's true. But I'm also his brother. I don't think, as far as maintenance of equipment and stuff, he has helped me repair my truck when it was broken down, but that's not business related. You know, he's a great guy, provides a great service for his community, and supports several people amongst myself and my little brother as an employer. I don't think that, you know, as far as their hobbies are concerned, I'm not going to tell someone, you know, unfortunately, if their hobbies are loud. Riker's been very considerate. As far as the vehicles stopping by there every morning, I am a professional driver. I have my CDL, so I drive his bucket truck with the chipper attached. Sometimes I do stop by his house in the morning very briefly just to confirm where I'm going because I want to make things quick and as efficient as possible. That's really all I have to say, but he does provide a great service for his community. Thousands of dollars worth of work. I mean, he provides an asset to his community, neighbors, and takes care of his family. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify tonight? Okay, we'll check in online. We got one hand up online. Okay, Mr. Larson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah. You can start with your name and address, please. You have 3 minutes to testify.
Okay, my name is David Larson. I live at 10885 West Edna. I'm kitty corner from them and directly across from Fifeshire. I typically don't work on Fridays, but just a short time in the morning. I've seen a substantial improvement in the amount of vehicles that are on site. Most of it is now gone. I've never heard any excessive noise. In fact, I believe I make more noise than they do. I run a hobby blacksmith shop in my garage. I see there's been nothing in the vision triangles as of since about the time that the code compliance officer came by. In fact, currently, right now, the big red truck that they own is getting some minor work done on it. There's one trailer in sight. A lot of the landscaping has been removed. So a lot of these complaints are no longer valid. And I've got absolutely no complaints with them, nor would I don't think the denial should go through. If you got any questions for me, I was completely unprepared for this one.
Okay. No questions right now. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Okay, I think that does it. I see no more hands up online, staff. We're good there. Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public testimony portion of this item. At this point, the applicant / appellant has 5 minutes to rebut any of the testimony. I'm going to come back up to the podium.
So just a couple of things. A lot of the noise and the fuel smell that Mrs. Rodriguez complained about is actually attributed to my husband's 3-wheelers and dirt bikes. I opposed him completely, but he is taking up the new hobby, and they do do maintenance on those things there at the house, and they store them currently in that side yard or on the back of their trucks, their personal vehicles. The chipper being started at 8:30 in the morning. I feel like that was enough time in the morning that, if somebody was getting tree work nearby, they would have been started at by 8:30 in the morning as well. So, and that's the amount of maintenance that we do on the chipper or any other, equipment or trucks is not, I don't think is excessive in the number of times that we have to do it there at the house. Like I said, it's just maintenance things, and so it's few and far between. The circus tents that were for they're actually white canopies that we have in that over our side yard there, because during the summer that side yard is all since it's all concrete, it's not even usable for any use because it gets so extremely hot there. So that's why we put those up. And although I would like to think I have a green thumb, I definitely don't, but I tried. And, if I want to keep any plants, I can't have them in the burning hot sun. So that's why the canopy was put up originally. And then the Bobcat and the grinder, like I said, we were using those for the backyard renovation, and those are owned by Riker personally. The trucks at the house in the morning are normally, like Caden mentioned, are just Caden stopping by because he's not on our software with the app. So he needs to get directions to the job site location sometimes. And sometimes Chris also stops by, for coffee in the morning. Cause like I said, that's Riker's best friend, and he's always welcome at our house. So also the fact that, with our neighbors directly to the west of us, we have always been very open and communicated a lot with them. From the day we moved in, they were understanding that we had a tree service. And because I know that we aren't the quietest neighbors, at all times, even if it is within the law. I've always been super communicated with them, and definitely offer them, honey, and when I had chickens, eggs for my chickens, because I do feel for our neighbors sometimes with the noise, but I don't think it's in any way excessive or outside of the law or against city code. And I don't think that we should be denied our home occupation permit for personal complaints. Like I said, in the end, we're just trying to make a living and are willing to follow any rules or city codes or laws, and can make those adjustments quickly. And like Mr. Larson had mentioned, we've done a lot of those corrections already. So
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is CZC 23-119.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard.
I move that we deny the appeal of the planning director's decision to deny a home occupation request at 10832 West Edna Street.
Second.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Milt. All right. So we have a motion to deny by Commissioner Blanchard with a second by Commissioner Gillespie. Chris, you want to start with some discussion?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, we got kind of down in the weeds there, and here's what the issue is that you're operating a business that is not zoned for that. It's a R1 zone. That means home. So just like every other tree service to valley, you need to go get a lay down yard somewhere else and move your commercial activities over there. There's so many things going on here. The tents are temporary uses that I wouldn't assume you had anything from the city clerk giving you permission to put up those tents, which you have to do as well. The code enforcement people can only enforce stuff that they can see from the public realm. So they probably didn't even include any of that stuff, but those are all code violations as well. So I just wanted to elevate this back up to the top. It's an R1 zone. It's a residential zone. You cannot operate a business like that at that intensity at that location, period. And I think the city is not going to be inclined to play whack-a-mole for all these violations. We have like 3 code enforcement officers for the entire city of whatever we're approaching nearly 300,000 people. So we just can't have these guys going there every week to check and make sure that you're complying. So we just need you to understand that you can't run a commercial business out of that location.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Chris. Milt.
I agree strongly with Commissioner Chris. Regardless of the specifics of the impact on the neighbors, the code is very clear. It says that a home occupation has to be clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the lot for dwelling purposes. And as Commissioner Blanchard points out, the tree trimming service with heavy equipment is not incidental and secondary to a home in a neighborhood. And there's really no amount of sort of remediation or moving things around that can fix that. You just can't run a heavy equipment oriented business out of your house. And so for that reason, I support the denial.
Okay. Thank you, Milt. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Danley.
I know my answer, but I'll float it anyway. I'm just wondering, curious if there was any opening or sort of an additional condition that might satisfy this in the sense of it being a 90 or 180 day sort of a probationary period of saying, there's a few discrepancies still remaining. It sounds like there's momentum in the right direction, but yet there's still some things that might be happening and or are gray or maybe even miscommunications. I'm not sure, but that things are seemingly going in the direction that we want them. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to approve the business, but that it be conditional for a certain time limit for code compliance folks to go back out in a relatively short period of time to potentially inspect one more time and ensure that everything's on the up and up. Just a question.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Milt. Okay.
For this commissioner, the answer is no. A tree trimming business with heavy equipment is not appropriate. The plain language of the code says The business shall be clearly incidental and secondary to the use of the lot for dwelling purposes. It doesn't say unless a whole bunch of stuff is mitigated. It doesn't say that. It just says, the plain language is it's a residential zone and this business isn't authorized in that zone.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, John, please.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Danley that this is going in the right direction, but I think you got off track with loud hobbies that both the appellant and her spouse had. And if it was just administrative bookwork for the tree service, that I'd be okay with it. But obviously that got off track. The loud hobbies got mixed in with wood chipper maintenance and chainsaws. And as a result, the neighbors got upset and the code compliance came in. And now we have to do what we have to do, which is uphold the code.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Moore, yeah.
Completely agree with Commissioner Mooney on that. I think really it's the finding that the use is conducted entirely within a dwelling or accessory structure that for me makes it difficult to kind of impose another condition to make it work, because I know that they're trying, it sounds like they're really putting it forth an effort to move all of the commercial equipment away and all those vehicles away, but there are instances where maintenance must occur on site and things like that. And I think those instances are telling that this use is likely not appropriate for this particular location.
Just to further on to address Commissioner Danley's, this is becoming endemic throughout the city. If you drive around, we've got the junk hauler company doing the same thing with parking their trucks and disposing of their garbage in the parking lot where they have office space. It's clearly the wrong use. Code enforcement's frustrated because they can't do anything because it's on private property, so they can't do anything. And so we've got the same thing with some of the other junk haulers. It's just, frankly, it's happening all over the city. If you go to the Fred Meyer parking lot on Orchard and Franklin, there's commercial vehicles being stored there. If you go to the Albertsons on Overland and Orchard, there's commercial vehicles being there, and they know that we can't do anything about it because it's on private property. So we can do something about this because it's clearly the wrong zoning use. And so, yeah, I'm not inclined to grant any leeway here because frankly, we're seeing these kind of misuses all over the city. So that's that.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Chris, you good? That's Chris.
Good.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a motion to deny the appeal. The motion again was by Commissioner Blanchard with a second by Commissioner Gillespie. Let's call the roll, please.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Stanley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Okay. We're gonna move on then next to item number 2. This is PUD 23-6 and also SUB 23-7. It's Centurion and B&A Engineers LLC. And this item was deferred from our meeting last week. The project address is 7605 North Bogart Lane. It's a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 6 single-family and 2 townhome units on 1.13 acres in an R1C zone. And then there is the associated preliminary plat for the said subdivision at the same address. And we're going to hear from staff first, Ms. Jessie Lau.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. The item before you is a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 6 single-family and 2 townhomes located at 7605 Bogart Lane on 1.13 acres in an R1C zone. And also included is a preliminary plat for 1 common and 8 buildable lots. On October 2nd, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission deferred this application in order for the applicant to work with staff to modify the proposal. The only changes to the full plan is displayed on the screen, showing that the applicant has reduced the development from 8 to 7 proposed lots, which has addressed the open space and parking concerns, and has reoriented lots 2 and 3 to front Dempsey Street, resulting in more consistent and compatible like yards throughout the development. With the proposed renovations or revisions, excuse me, the planning team can modify the original recommendation in order to recommend approval of the development as outlined in the updated reason statement and findings in the late correspondence packet. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Next, we're going to hear from the applicant.
Chairman, Commissioners, David Crawford of Centurion Engineers, 2323 South Vista Avenue, in Boise. We were pleased to be able to get rid of the red X's we had from last week's meeting, to get the letter updated and to conform with the revised preliminary plat that's before you tonight. We believe that the project presented is compliant with city codes and ordinances and is compatible with the neighborhood. We respectfully request your approval. And I'll stand for any questions you have.
Okay, great. Sit tight for questions for just 1 minute, please. We'll be right back. First, we're going to check in to see if we have anyone from the neighborhood association with us, the Northwest Neighborhood Association. Oh. Okay, doesn't look like they're here, so we'll go ahead and open this up for any questions by the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
question for staff on the late correspondence, page 4, it talked about the second condition is provide enhanced landscaping. I missed where that is. Can you point that out, Jesse?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it's not really easy to see on this photo on the screen. However, it would be on the west side of the lots 3 and 2. There is a common drive like alley that people use to enter the project. And so it would be a requirement to enhance the landscaping on that south end.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and open this item up for public testimony. If you're here to testify on this item, the podium is free. Okay, very good. And anybody online, if you'd like to testify on this item, please raise your hand. Okay. So at this point, back to the applicant, this is typically where the applicant has time for rebuttal of anything heard during testimony. You can certainly yield that time if you'd like. Okay, they are yielding that time. So we'll go ahead and bring these items back before the commission. Just a reminder that we are recommending on the plat. So recommending on SUB 23-7.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
I recommend I move that we approve PUD 23-6 and recommend approval for sub 23-7 with all the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Got a motion to approve and recommend approval by Commissioner Mooney with a second by Commissioner Moore. John, any discussion?
Nothing beyond thank you to the applicant for getting back here and fixing the red X's.
Very good. Okay. Jennifer, anything to add? Or?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
No, I think, it's just a good example of working with the city to come up with a solution that works. So thank you for that. And just to clarify, that's the modified conditions of approval.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Very good. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we have a motion to approve PUD 23-6 and recommend approval of SUB 23-7. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Stanley,
Yep.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Very good. Thank you, guys. We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll be back right at 7. Give you an extra minute. Come on, no, come on. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Okay, let's move along to item number 3, correct? PUD 23-21, KPG Investment 2 LLC, project address is 9700 West State Street. This is a modification to a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 296 multifamily and 3 single-family units on 11.52 acres in a pending R3D DA zone and a C2D DA zone. And then we also have a modification to, sorry, that's it. Same thing, PUD and a CAR, both. Okay, we're gonna hear from staff first. I'll stop talking now. Go ahead, Jesse.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the item before you is Sierra 23-18 and PUD 23-21, which is a modification to a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 296 multifamily and 3 single-family units on 11.52 acres in a pending R3D DA zone and a C2D DA zone located at 9700 State Street. A modification to a development agreement to update the scope of the project and concept plan is also included. This project was approved in 2022 on approximately 9.5 acres with a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use from compact to high density, a rezone from R1A to R3D DA, and a PUD for 224 multifamily and 3 single-family homes, as well as a preliminary plat. Since the approval, the applicant has acquired the 2-acre parcel to the west and has submitted revised plans to incorporate the 2 acres into this development. The plan modification allows for buildings to be closer to State Street and provides density along the transit corridor and multi-use pathway. Additionally, there are enhanced pedestrian connections to the pathway and throughout the development. The applicant has also proposed detached sidewalks along Duncan Lane, whereas attached were approved in the original application. The project is proposed to maintain the Ulmer Lane extension as well as the extension of Sloan Street. The applicant has proposed to maintain the vehicle entrance onto Sloan Street as emergency access only with bollard or fenced entrance. And a recommended condition of approval will require the applicant to remove this emergency only access and to allow normal vehicle traffic through the entrance. If emergency only access is maintained, there's only one vehicle access point to the 192 units north of the Ulmer Lane extension. The applicant is also requesting to modify the recorded DA to reflect the proposed site changes. However, there are no other changes proposed to the development agreement. Public comment was received as late correspondence and sent out this afternoon for the commission's review. The Northwest Neighborhood Association drafted a letter that was supported by other individuals with concerns about additional traffic and safety, as well as the proximity to a bus stop. They also brought up concerns with the timing of construction of Fire Station 13, as well as the environmental impacts of the development, such as drainage, loss of habitat, urban heat island effect, and more. ACHD and ITD have received or reviewed the traffic impact study provided for the approved development and did not provide additional comments addressing the modification. However, the construction of the Ulmer Lane extension will be provided by the applicant, and the addition of a signal at the intersection with State Street is on the ACHD 5-year work plan. Building permits for Fire Station 13 are currently in review, and the construction is slated to take place later this year into 2024. While the development will change the ecology of the area, the applicant is proposing to provide enhanced landscaping as well as permeable pavers in the parking areas in order to help mitigate the impacts of the development. And in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the PUD and DA modification, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Next, we hear from the applicant.
Hello, good evening. Stephanie Hopkins with KM Engineering. Our address is 5725 North Discovery Way in Boise. I'm here tonight representing our client, the property owner, Kinterra Property Group, on the planned unit development modification. Jesse did a wonderful job summarizing our request, so I'm not going to bore you with too many of the details. You know where the property is. We recently actually we recorded the development agreement that was approved by City Council just a few weeks ago. So the zoning is correct. Originally, the project was 9.54 acres. Our client acquired 2 acres, and so they wanted to incorporate additional buildings and make it more cohesive and integrated. So originally, we were proposing 224 multifamily units and 3 single-family units. There was a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. We did receive a height exception to allow us to go up to 55 feet for 4-story buildings for 4 of the buildings, and those are highlighted in yellow with the original plan. Our new plan incorporates 7 multifamily buildings, 3 single-family lots, and has buildings pushed towards State Street, as Jesse mentioned. We also have a few buildings that are over an existing property line, so we'll be doing a parcel consolidation. And one of the conditions of approval for this project is a combined preliminary and final plat that we've submitted to staff, and I believe it's going to be scheduled to be before you soon for recommendation to City Council. Now we are proposing 296 units, so that's increased our density slightly. I think we're around 25 units per acre. There's still a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units and 7 buildings, as I mentioned. We are still requesting a height exception to allow up to 55 feet for 6 of the buildings. Our clients worked with the neighbors in the neighborhood association as well as just adjacent neighbors very consistently throughout the last 3 years we've been working on this project. And one of their initial requests was to keep the building that's kind of furthest east as a 3-story. So we're keeping that as 3 stories. This is just a comparison between the 2 plans. And our open space and site amenities have increased slightly since the last time around. We're including clubhouse and pool up towards the top of the site. And then we've also added a children's play structure. I don't remember if there's a laser or not. I guess, but you can't see it on the screen. There's a little tot lot, or children's play structure, ping pong, barbecue, and seating area that'll be in kind of the triangular piece right off of Ulmer. And then we're including the multi-use pathway along State Street. We also have made site changes to include a detached sidewalk along Duncan Lane. That'll be a nice asset to everyone. Typical building elevations will be similar to the last time around, a little bit different. We're incorporating some different colors as well as some different types of materials, hardy board and some nice siding. It'll be kind of like a Northwestern style architecture with some kind of balcony things too. So overall, we're in agreement with the staff report. We really appreciate staff's help in coordinating the process with this project. It's been a long time coming. We do have one request, and that is to strike condition 4, which is a recommendation to basically allow a full access point in an area that we'd previously requested to be emergency access. And this is one point that the neighborhood association was very adamant about, was to keep the access point that leads from Sloan into the multifamily parking lot as emergency access only. As you can see, there's an area that's directly west of our property or our client's property that will be redeveloped in the future. I think it's under Corey Barton's ownership, and I think they've been in a pre-app with city recently. So there will be Sloan Street will actually connect to the road that's further to the west, and this could potentially lead to a fair amount of cut through traffic that would go directly through the multifamily portion of the parking area. We have our clubhouse and some of the larger site amenities, as well as some increased pedestrian connections that we've added in that portion of the site. And our client's intention is to make this as safe as possible and try to restrict vehicular and pedestrian conflict as much as possible. We think that the best way to do that would be by restricting that access to an emergency access. So we're asking that condition 4 be stricken from the recommendation. But other than that, I do have the development team with us this evening. If you have any questions for them that I can't answer, and I will stand for questions. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. No questions right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's check in. I don't think Richard's with us or anybody from the neighborhood association. They join us online, staff. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open up to questions by the commission then.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
Stephanie, can I ask you just a couple questions about the site plan real quick? We might just throw those slides back up there. Can we go to the cover slide, Jesse? There we go. All right. What's the orientation we're looking at here? So that big landscaping piece there, that's at the northeast corner?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, yes, that would be the northeast corner. And this is actually, I didn't mention this before, but this is a rendering that was done with the previous site plan. So it's a little bit different than what we're proposing this evening. But yes, that's the clubhouse with the pool, and then the dog areas.
Excellent, excellent. Right. And then on the west, what's anticipated on the west side of the of the site. If we can go to that one, Jesse, or whoever's got the driver. Yeah, there we go. Right at on the west side of the C2D parcel.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blanchard. So that's the 2 acres that our client has acquired, and we've included a couple of buildings kind of branching over the top of it. So building I think it's B and C on the west part, there's a little property line that's dashed through the middle of those. And so the reason we're asking for a plan unit development modification is to be able to incorporate that and make it more integrated. We'd looked at the option of, just including a building or 2 on just the 2 acres and doing that separately, but it just didn't work as well or make as much sense. So
And then, so on the western edge there, that property next door, you're just anticipating that'll see future development.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, I believe that is under Corey Barton's ownership. Maybe Jesse can fill in, but I think that they're
Okay.
planning a mixture of multifamily and kind of townhome products.
Okay. And then just last question, Stefan, I'll let you go. Building, is that building B, I guess there? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter because there's not a street next to that. So the orientation really doesn't matter too much then. So, okay, cool. I just wanted to get a better walk through the site. Thanks, Stephanie.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Mr.
staff.
Mr. Chair, Stephanie, you can just point the laser pointer up there to
Oh.
kind of get your
Of
point
course,
across a
thank
little
you.
better. Yeah.
Sorry,
That's-
Stephanie.
No, I was like having a hard time with the computer.
Mr. Chairman.
I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. It's my fault. No.
I have a question for staff and the applicant. So we have a disagreement. I think it's about condition 4,
Yeah.
the Sloan Street. I guess let's do counterpoint. Can you please, Jesse, summarize the city's position on why you want it open? And I guess I just heard you talk about why you want it closed, but you can respond to why she wants it open. Or the city does.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, essentially, if that was restricted to emergency access only, that would limit vehicle access to 1 point on Omar Lane for 192 units. So just providing a little bit greater connectivity within the neighborhood and more options for people living in the area.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please move.
And is it true that the comprehensive plan would guide us to open that and create more connectivity, spread the traffic out as much as possible? Is
Mr.
that a
Chair.
correct interpretation of the comp plan?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that is a general theme throughout the comprehensive plan is to provide more connectivity when possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
John. Yeah.
She might respond.
Yeah, sorry. Hang on,
Oh.
John. Stephanie, Jeff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, I understand where staff's thoughts are on this, and I think, our team has considered it. And, if the neighbors weren't so vehemently against it, I think we may not be as opposed to the condition. However, I mean, as you look at the way that it could redevelop and the fact that our client will be installing a collector roadway with Ulmer through the site, I think most of the traffic is going to funnel from the west to the east to get to that signalized intersection, which would potentially lead to a lot of traffic going through what is intended to be a parking lot for residents with increased pedestrian connections through the parking lot to get to the community area where folks, including kids, may be going to the pool and community center. So it just seems like a lot of conflict that could potentially result.
Mr. Chairman.
No.
Just help me keep score though. So if we open Sloan Street, and Sloan Street eventually is going to connect to the west to
Mhm.
something, right? It's going to get cut through. So that will create essentially entrance exit number 1. Then there's going to be an entrance exit number 2 on Ulmer, which is going to be signalized. And then there's entrance exit number 3 on, I guess it's Bogart Lane, right? Or Bogart Lane, right? Or that, the
Duncan.
road on the far east.
Mhm.
So that's 3 points of contact, so to speak. That seems really desirable to me. And I'm not getting your opposition, frankly.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, I mean, to your point, if there are that many connections, why would it be important to have a connection go through a parking lot to get to a collector and then eventually signalized? I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate because I think in this case,
Yeah.
our developer is looking to make sure that residents are safe. And I think with the amount of parked cars and potential folks that would be moving through there, it just could create a lot of conflict. And maybe I misunderstood your question.
Thank you.
I feel like she answered it. You feel like
I
she
don't
answered
want
it?
to be, we'll have deliberations
Yes.
on this, not.
Very good.
This is question time.
We'll let
not
Stephanie sit
argument
down for
time.
deliberation. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right. John, you've been patiently waiting.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
Question for staff. So I'm trying to understand the relationship between the city council's approval and conditions from last month. For example, this discussion we're just having, it's very clear. Condition 3 is the project shall provide cross-access with the adjacent properties to the west, which is kind of what fueled the question we just dealt with Commissioner Gillespie. So the other one that I wanted more clarification on is the CDA, Cooperative Development Agreement with ACHD and the Ulmer intersection. So how does that last month's city council conditions, how do they relate to tonight?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this was originally done last year. Is that the time you're talking about with the development agreement?
I'm just looking at page 331 in our agenda packet and conditions of approval from city council dated, you're right, November 4th, 22.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
you're
you
right.
for the clarification. To answer your question, yes, that was one of the modifications that was added to the development agreement by city council, was to provide east-west access. And the Sloan extension would be that provision. So that is another reason to want to have that access, not just limited to emergency access only.
Great. Then I got one last minor. Can I look at the site plan in the screen there? I got a question on the single family lots up on top. I think the second parcel, single family parcel from the west, north of Sloan, it's got cross hatching or something. I couldn't figure out from our agenda packet what that meant. What's different about that parcel?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, that's going to be essentially an open space lot so that we can get drainage in there and then also extend sewer from the north.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I may, on the cross-access condition from the last approval, I think potentially the intention was that that 2-acre piece was going to be kind of landlocked and without an access point. So they wanted to make sure they had access from our original property boundary or the original project boundary. So there was connection there, but I agree with staff. I think Sloan fulfills that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
if I could from staff get the overhead image, the satellite image pulled up, that would be helpful. Sure, that'll work. So to the applicant and I guess also to staff, we have almost 300 units. If we use the back of the envelope, 2.5 people per unit, we're knocking on the door of 750 people, just short of the population of Cascade. Why is there no commercial in here? We are surrounded by residential, and I'm just curious, with 2 additional acres being asked for, why is there no commercial retail opportunities at all as part of this, or even office for that matter?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, that topic was never really approached when we were looking at the project. And I think that's because the developer is a residential developer. And so when they acquired the property, we were communicating with the city throughout, and that seemed like it would work well for this development that we're proposing. But it is a small property. I know it was previously used for the Franz Woody nursery, and I don't know, that might be a question that would be better for an economic development person or somebody that would kind of know what the market would call for here. I know that the city's really been looking to acquire more housing, and so this is the direction that we went.
I guess as a follow-up, Mr. Chair. So a question to staff, with the TOD, with the State Street Plan and transit-oriented development and that plan having significant language with respect to the mixture of uses, and now being told that the property that's to the west, which we're not discussing here today, but could conceivably be even more residential, would the State Street Plan, in our opinion, at the very least, identify this as being a node, being a desirable place for mixture of uses, especially, I mean, if we're talking about pedestrian access and the neighborhood association, recognizing that transit access across the opposite side of the street all being the part of their concern, is that, how do I phrase this the right way? We feel strongly that this application complies with the spirit of the State Street Plan, specifically around TOD.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, while the State Street Plan does have a lot of different goals and things that they're looking for along State Street, this was an expansion or proposed expansion of just residential. And TOD nodes also do need residents in order to support them. So there is an opportunity for commercial, but there's also commercial up and down State Street, either direction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, John.
Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
question for staff. So I think on no ACHD comments. That seems kind of strange for such a large project that's been in the works for a long time. What's happened there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, ACHD didn't update their comments from the last time, but we have had conversations with them about just that this was still appropriate and that they did not need to redo the TIS that was initially submitted. Also had conversations about keeping Duncan Lane as a right in, right out once that intersection with Ulmer is signalized.
Mr. Chair, follow up on, so on the Ulmer intersection, could you kind of talk us through that as well? As far as what that looks like, what's the expectation on signalizing Ulmer? I read in there that the applicant's supposed to work with cooperative development agreement with ACHD and then possibly fund that, get it in the 5-year work plan. It's not in the 5-year work plan that just got signed last week. So I'm curious where we're going with that intersection.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I know that the applicant has had pretty detailed discussions with ACHD, so they might be able to add some details. But from the conversations that I've had, that the applicant would be responsible for constructing the Ulmer Lane extension. And then it would be in ACHD's work plan and working with the applicant to install that signal.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, that's correct. We have been working with ACHD consistently throughout the last year, and part of what took this application to take so long to get to you is that our client was working with property to the south to acquire right of way to allow for the signal to be installed for the whole intersection. So they're currently in coordination with Capital City Development Corporation as well to work on kind of a joint financing situation, and the cooperative development agreement is under review and being worked on with ACHD.
Mr. Chair, follow up then. So for the applicant, then the fact that it didn't make the integrated 5-year work plan cut at ACHD just recently, how's that impact what's going to happen next?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I wasn't aware that it didn't make the 5-year work plan. So I think it is a part of their work plan. All the conversations I've had with ACHD has indicated that it's in their 5-year work plan. So it's eligible for the cooperative development agreement. And maybe our client has some insight that I don't, but I don't think it'll impact the construction of the light. They've been currently working on it and plans are under review. It's just a matter of all the pieces falling into place.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We're good on questions? Okay. All right. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks,
Thank
staff. We'll go ahead and open up this item for public testimony. If they testify, the podium is free. They didn't? Yeah, they weren't here. Yeah. You're good. You start with your name and address, please. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Mark Renz. I live at 9501 West Sloan Street. I'm immediately adjacent to this emergency access point that's in question currently. I obviously oppose this because my thought process is by having the buildings on the northern end of the property there. So in as much as they don't want traffic going through their property, from an ease of access perspective, people will go out through our residential street there, and opening it up to connect across to the west is perfectly acceptable. We've always expected that to happen, but to have 750 people have access to go down my street right next to my house is unreasonable. So considering that comes out onto Ulmer Lane and the way they've designed that, there should be plenty of access for people to get out and move about to go both northbound and southbound from there. And if Duncan Lane is held open as a right in and a right out, that creates even more access there as well. So I think it's more reasonable to keep that as an emergency access. I do believe that it is necessary to be able to get emergency vehicles into the northern part of the property. But to their point, having traffic come across there in a high rate of speed or even a slow rate of speed, either way, is not good. And then having them exit there and turning right or left is going to be problematic for the neighbors that live there currently, me being one of them. So I appreciate your time and effort and intention.
Great, thank you. I also had Nick Graggs sign up. Gage, sorry.
Thanks. My name's Nick Gage. I live at 9480 West Sloan Street, right across the street from Mark. I have 2 kids. The neighbor across the street from me, 2 kids down the street, and a little girl that plays with my kids, and they're in that street constantly. And all those houses that are there now, they're all 2-car garages. So more than not, there's usually cars all lined up there already, you know, and we don't even have these apartments there. So it has an emergency exit. That's good for safety. And then I'd appreciate if you guys would do us a solid and keep it safe for us. And it's not totally necessary for you to open that, then please help us out and keep the traffic slow for us, because I'm sure whatever's coming is going to open it up to quite a bit anyway. So, and I appreciate the applicant siding with us on this. And so help us out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you were quick before. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Just real quick.
To that end, all of the I was just thinking about this the other day. All of the houses on Sloan Street are 2-car garages on 5-foot setbacks, and they're nearly 3,000 square feet. So every single house has a car or more parked on the street. And to Nick's point, that's an important aspect of it, because as you add traffic to that street, it's very difficult to see. So that's an
Mr.
important
Chairman,
point.
And
can we get his name?
Yeah, I will.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, name and address one more time.
I
Yeah.
apologize. Mark Renz,
Mhm.
9501 West Sloan Street.
Thank you, Mr. Renz. That's just for everybody online
I
and
understand.
in testimony.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Okay. All right, anybody else would like to testify? Okay, we'll check in online real quick. If you're online and want to testify, please raise your hand. No takers? Okay. We'll bring it back before the applicant for a quick rebuttal. Or you can certainly yield the time if you'd like. Or you can just be quick, Stephanie.
Thank you,
Either way.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. I think, we're obviously wanting to keep the emergency access in place, and so there's not much I'd like to add. We have been coordinating with ACHD on the cooperative development agreement, which I was talking with our client. I don't believe it is, or this property is not within, or Ulmer is not within the 5-year integrated work plan, which is why we're doing the cooperative development agreement. So just to clarify that, but we'll stand for questions if you have them, and thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. Thanks. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring these items back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is PUD 23-21 and CAR 23-18.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
I move that we approve PUD 23-21 with all the terms and conditions in the staff report. And that we recommend approval of CAR 23-18 with all the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Okay.
I think I got that right.
Yeah, you did. Staff, yeah.
So specifically, Mr. Chairman, before there's a second.
Yeah.
That includes the condition 4 to keep Sloan Street open to the public.
Yep.
So that's the city's current position
Per the staff report.
per the staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Mooney. Yeah. Okay.
Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
go ahead, Milt.
I think for me, the only issue that is in, what's the right word, contention or discussion is a Sloan Street issue. And I just want to read from Richard's letter and just point out what I think is a fundamental issue with the neighborhood's problem. So this is page 2 of his letter, the one he resent. It's the paragraph midway through the second page. Our major concerns are preventing unsafe traffic through the neighborhood. And he talks about we shouldn't prioritize automobiles over public safety. But then he says, by adhering to dogmatic design principles in order to cope with the lack of adequate traffic infrastructure in this area. And then he implicitly means we should close this intersection. Well, Sloan Street's part of the infrastructure. So it's basically what he's saying is we're going to reduce the amount of traffic infrastructure accessible from this point. And that just goes against the basic issue of creating a connected city where you're trying to spread the city out. City policy is frankly to have some traffic go down Sloan Street, east and west. That is the stated policy of the city. It's also to have people go out on Ulmer and go down to Duncan, then out on Duncan. But creating connectivity is clearly stated as a goal in the comprehensive plan. And part of that is this. Now, I can certainly understand if a commissioner says, it's not worth it in this particular case. It's just kind of a judgment call, and that, that's where I'm sitting.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mel. Okay. John is the seconder. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree with Commissioner Gillespie on the connectivity piece and the future development to the west. Regarding the testimony we heard about neighbors parking on the street, that's part of what's going to slow traffic down is the friction caused by parked vehicles along Sloan. So I understand the concern that it's a dead end street now and no traffic, but change is happening.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daly.
I'm just going to hit on the connection piece first before I talk a little bit more on the connectivity piece. This is we're a city that had at one point in our applications a connectivity index as part of applications, where we used to literally determine mathematically through calculations how well connected an application was or was not. In the world of transportation, more connections is better. That's why there's not been any widening in the north end, because it's a perfect grid and it's very well connected. It's why exactly there are lots of widenings that have occurred up on the bench and other parts, because that connectivity through the 60s and 70s broke down. So it's imperative that we continue to build a well-connected grid so that traffic is dispersed and not concentrated in one area. With regard to the motion, this is the problem that I have, and it's similar on the transportation front. In our application, it flat out says trip capture 0. Nothing in this application captures any trips. All trips are sent out of this parcel to go elsewhere in our community. So it's a segregated land use. It's 100% residential. We're getting additional 2 acres here, and there's opportunities on a TOD street that we are putting 15 minutes transit headways on to be able to capture more activity and for people to be able to walk inside of this application to buy a gallon of milk. So they don't have to get in their car, go down the road, come back and gum up traffic for all the things that we've just, as a city, said we don't want. So for me, I'm having a really hard time, especially when I look around this particular parcel and see it being pure residential, yet fronting on our busiest and most important arterial, at least from the multiple millions of dollars that we have put forth in plans saying we want it to be different. So that's where I'm having a hard time supporting this application.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, John.
So clarification from Commissioner Danley then. So since the 2 acre ad is currently commercial, what I understand you saying, Chris, is that that's your difficulty with this, is you'd like to see some commercial retained because it's currently zoned commercial.
Right, but it's not going to function as commercial. It's functioning in terms of its commercial activity with respect to collecting rents, but it's not functioning in terms of any sort of retail or office for that matter. Single office suites, good luck finding that in this city, right? But here's an opportunity, again, on a transit node where that could be achieved. And so just to see a 100% space with up to 750 people and not a single trip get captured, and putting all the pressure of transportation out onto Straight Street or in the neighborhood or wherever else, given the additional 2 acres, I would love to have seen, give me 1,000 square feet, give me 2,000 square feet, something that satisfies this at least to a degree. That's what I was hoping to see, especially knowing that the State Street plan specifically calls for a mixed use of land uses.
Mr. Chairman.
Milt? Yeah.
So from a policy point of view, I understand, Chris. I broke my pick on this out on Ben's Crow Inn 10 years ago. You guys have heard this story. The reality is it's zoned residential. The applicant has met the findings. I'm just, I'm not clear on how we would apply the required findings to deny this because it doesn't have commercial. I just don't understand how we would do that. Because it's zone, it's meeting the requirements of the zone and the comprehensive use map. So that's kind of where I'm stuck. I've been on, you've heard my spiel on this before. We can't, it's very, very hard to push a noodle uphill in commercial space.
Yeah.
We tried, so suppose he puts in 1,000 square feet and it just stays vacant because he or she, the landowner, can't make the thing tick. And that's the dilemma we have. So where I'm at is I would approve this because I think it meets the legal findings that we're required to make.
Okay, thanks, Milt. Neither.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore? Yeah.
I think for me on the connectivity piece, I was on the fence. I think it makes sense adding more connections, dispersing traffic more, things like that make sense. And I think when you look at the site plan comparisons, comparing the 2 different plans, the new plan does feel a little bit less, it's less visible, right? It's less obvious. I think if I was either not used to this development, or maybe if I lived in that kind of plan southeastern portion, I may not even know that cut through exists. And so I may not use that at all. It's kind of tucked back away. There's not a lot of prominence called towards it. And it's just kind of beside some parking. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. And then on the commercial portion, I think, similar to an application that we had a while ago, this is a vacant parcel. It's not been developed with commercial yet. This is the current proposal. And I think maybe the hope is that this might be the spring point to add more commercial or to provide more demand. Not that that's guaranteed, but I think the point is certainly there. And the hope is that this will be the demand that will encourage more commercial in this location.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay. All right. I'll be supporting the motion as well. I like this layout, the site layout much better. I think that it moved in a better direction as far as building locations and arrangement. So well done there. I'm supporting the motion. I understand the concerns regarding traffic on Sloan. Fact remains, it's a stub street. It's always intended to move to the west. I don't think the connectivity to this parking lot is going to cause undue burden onto that street. And it's a fully built out street as well. You've got sidewalks on both sides of Sloan Street. So I feel comfortable with the condition and the city's direction as written. So I'll be supporting the motion. Unless there's any further discussion, I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Okay. All right. Again, we got a motion to approve PUD 23-21 and to recommend approval of CAR 23-18. Again, the motion was by Commissioner Gillespie with a second by Commissioner Mooney. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Stanley,
No.
Mooney,
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 4, CUP 23-41 Hayden Beverage, 2910 East Amity Road, special exception for a special events center on 34.14 acres in an M1D zone. And we're here from staff first, Sabrina Mortensen. Commissioner Danley, sorry.
I will be recusing myself, for I am an affected resident and have submitted written testimony into the application.
Okay, all right. Let the record show Commissioner Danley has recused himself from this item. Thank you, Chris. Sabrina.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a request for a special exception for a social event center on 34.14 acres located at 2910 East Amity Road in an M1D zone. The primary use of the subject property is a beverage distribution plant, and the applicant proposes to utilize an approximately 5.2 acre open space in the northwestern portion of the site as a social event center. The New York Canal abuts the property to the north, and the adjacent parcels to the east and west are developed with light industrial uses. There are existing residential neighborhoods nearby to the north, east, and west, and an Idaho Power distribution center is located to the south across Amity Road. In 2019, Hayden Beverage received design review approval for the construction of a picnic shelter with an enclosed restroom facility for employee use. Since 2021, the space has been used as a venue for 1 to 2 concerts per year, which have received special event permits from the special events team in the city clerk's office. The applicant requests a special exception to allow continued use of the property as a social event center for a range of events, including weddings, fundraisers, class reunions, and 1 to 2 concerts per year. The applicant's letter of intent indicates that they intend for any event with amplified sound to be held on weekends and to end by 10 p.m. The letter also details the measures that the applicant has taken to mitigate traffic and noise impacts when hosting previous events on the site. While the subject property is large enough to accommodate the proposed use, and comments received from commenting agencies indicate that the event center would not place an undue burden on public facilities in the vicinity, the request does not comply with the other approval criteria of code. Special exception permits are intended to allow uses which are typically prohibited in a certain zoning district when the impact of the proposed use would be equal or lesser than the impact of allowed uses in the zone. However, the noise and traffic impacts of the proposed social event center are anticipated to exceed the impacts that would be generated by allowed uses in the M1D zone, particularly during the concert events. The event center would primarily operate during the off-business hours of the adjacent industrial uses and would have minimal impact on those properties. However, the use would not be compatible with the nearby single-family residences in the area. Additionally, code dictates that special exception should only be granted when proper zoning for the use is not available in the general neighborhood, but there are multiple zoning districts which would conditionally allow a social event center within 3/4 of a mile of the site. Public comments were received both in opposition to and in support of the request, as detailed in your packets and summarized on this slide. In conclusion, the planning team finds the request does not comply with the approval criteria for a special exception and recommends denial, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Next, we're going to hear from the applicant.
Andy Mitchell, 2170 East Mozart Court, Meridian, Idaho. I'm the president of Hayden Beverage. Dodds apologizes that believe he's online, but cannot be in here in person. He had a stroke 2 months ago, and so he's doing physical therapy related to his MS with that off-site. So we're a 53-year-old family business. I've been with the company for about 10 years. I plan to retire there, so I'm not a short-term guy. We've grown over the last 10 years I've been there from 250 people to about 700 people. The park was originally created because we wanted to do a company picnic, and we couldn't find a location that was either affordable or accessible for that number of people. So we had this undeveloped land. We spent about $300,000 to develop it, put in grass, put in a small structure, and set it up to do just that. As a family company, getting our team together was important to us, and not just our members, but the family members as well. We found the venue to be useful, but more importantly, what we found was pretty strong support from a lot of the community saying, I wish you had events there that were open to the community. And that's where the genesis for this idea was originally placed. And specifically what they said, I want a place to ride my bikes to. I want a place to see the beautiful Boise evenings with family and friends. So if, with your permission, Mr. Chair, can I hand out some photos from some of the events? Is that
I'm sorry,
acceptable?
we can't take hard copies up here just because we got people online and
I
for the record and
understand.
whatnot. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm not used to these settings, so.
you're good. Okay.
But what the photos would show you is families hanging out at the events. This is not a concert like people come out from out of town like Treefort or something like that. There's not publicized. Pretty much the only publications we do is on our Facebook site for Hayden and then to the local community to invite them as well. We're certainly not perfect. We've had some mistakes with the concerts in the past. I think we had one where we didn't have somebody on site and the noise went well beyond 10 o'clock. That was a mistake. We've since made sure there's someone on site at all hours and that it strictly ends at 10 o'clock. And I think a number of them have ended at 9:30. I think to date, we've hosted 5 events, about 7,500 people in attendance. I don't think we've ever had a related incident as far as drunk and disorderly, driving or under the influence, speeding, anything like that. They've all been very civil events. I think I read the packet for the denial. And I think in there, I read all 5 of the claims by residents that the music went on beyond 10 and they simply don't trust us to limit it to 1 to 2 events. And I would say, I support them. We are not trying to do an event center. That is not our goal. This is not a for-profit thing. This is not how we make our money. We make our money as a distribution center. What we really wanted to do is have a venue for our employees to be able to use. And under special circumstances for some of the local residents, we have done a couple of fundraisers for a veterans group and things like that on site. So I can't give them to you, I guess, because, but we do have 27 letters of support from the community that we've gathered over the last 3 days after reading the denial. I'm not sure if there's a way to get them in or not, but we do have 27. A number of those residents listed the time that they've lived in this community. They total up to well over 100 years of community members. And again, the support was a local area where we could bring our family to, have a nice time, ride our bikes. You'd see a photo in here of like 100 bikes or whatever, but we're currently zoned as light industrial. So to be clear, we're never going to be quiet. That's not what's going to happen there if this is denied. It is light industrial. We're asking for a exception as outlined for 1 to 2 events a year for our team and for the community. So I think that's it. I think in closing, and it took a whopping 4 minutes. I think in closing, the Hayden family, Hayden Beverage, we're not out of town commercial people that have come in to take advantage of the growth that Boise has experienced over the last 2 decades. We are part of this community. Our owners lived here, raised his family here. His kids will take over the business someday. They'll raise their families. We're not moving from this building. We bought it when it had been vacant for 2 years and put substantial effort into refining it. And then the last thing I think that I just forgot to mention is, again, we made some mistakes. When we moved in, we had our trucks making beeping noise when they would back up at night. The neighbors complained. We've turned off the beeping noise. We put in some lights for safety. The lights were aimed too high. They broadcasted over some of our neighbors' homes. Was brought to our attention. We put shields on the lights and dimmed the lights and put them down in response to the neighbors. I think with the concerts themselves, we've had a couple of issues. Again, we made some mistakes and I think we've responded to them. I would hope that the Mr. Chair and the commissioners, you would know that we will continue to respond to neighbors. Our goal is not to have a for-profit center. Our goal is simply to provide easy access to the community and to our team. So I think I'm done. I guess, do I pause for questions now?
Sit tight for questions, Mr. Mitchell. We'll be, stay close.
Stay close.
We got some other folks we got to check in with first.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Okay. Let's see if anyone from the Southeast Neighborhood Association is with us. Is Mr. Berg online? Is Eric online? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Eric.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Eric Berg, 1301 South Grant Ave. Allowed and conditional uses are built on a two-way street of trust. One from the owner perspective, as it allows them to know what they can do with their land, while for neighbors, they can form more realistic expectations of what sorts of uses will be nearby. The special exemption application breaks this trust in asking for a use that is clearly incompatible and doesn't meet the special exemption code. The board of the Southeast Neighborhood Association voted to oppose CUP 2341 because it doesn't meet the standard of the code of showing any special circumstances supporting approval, or that it would produce less or equal impact on the neighborhood, and there is proper zoning in the area. We ask for the commission to reject this project on these bases. The project is in an M1D district, and because there's no allowed or conditional use for a special events center, the applicant is applying under the special exemptions part of the code. Under this section, they have to meet all 7 requirements. I'm going to focus on just a few of them that they clearly do not meet. The code requires there be no proper zoning for the proposed use in the general neighborhood. As the staff report map shows, there's adjacent land that could be used for a special events center that is not M1 zoning, which is allowed under a conditional use permit, not necessitating a special exemption. This is a case where the proper zoning is available not only in the general neighborhood, but immediately adjacent, and therefore the applicant does not meet this requirement. For a special permit, the applicant must show that the use is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. There are instances in our city where zoning and the comprehensive plan do not align, and in those cases, it might make sense to allow for a special exemption while the zoning catches up to the plan we have for the area. But that isn't the case here. The comprehensive plan and zoning are both aligned that this is light industrial area, and therefore the applicant does not meet this requirement either. Most importantly, the code requires that the use will produce an equal or reduced impact upon the site or neighborhood than would an allowed use. We see in submitted comments where the applicant has had events similar to what they're asking for, a CUP for, that this requirement is not met in any shape, way, or form. Neighbors talk about in the comments how they were affected by the music, noise, and even stage. They speak about how their windows shook from the loud music, and that even with doors and windows shut, the music was heard inside people's houses. This is wildly more impactful than Hayden's regular operations or allowed uses. One might expect it to have trucks or forklifts, but they don't expect to be near something that has loud music till 10 o'clock at night when they move into a M1 zone. I live down the street from Boise Stadium or Bronco Stadium. And I certainly had a realistic expectation when I moved here that a half dozen or so times a year, there'd be football games that include PA announcers, cheering, bands, etc. These were realistic expectations I made based on living near a U zone. These neighbors realistically expected daytime truck traffic, maybe some backup alarms from trucks or forklifts by living next to an M1 zone, but they could have never anticipated the greater and wildly different impact of an outdoor concert venue in the M1 zone. The impact is not reduced, nowhere close to equal, and is far greater and different impact to the neighbors than any use that would be found in the M1 zone. For these reasons, we ask you to reject the application, support the staff report, and keep the trust of the code for uses that meet the standards set out in the code. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All right, we'll go ahead and open this up for questions by the commission to either the applicant or staff or neighbor association. You good? No, it's good. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Jennifer, yeah.
So one of the, I think one of the allowed uses in the M1D zone is brewery, distillery, and winery. And so I think it's pretty different, but can you kind of describe the difference in maybe use when I'm thinking about a winery that has like a live music playing? How would that differ from this particular use in an event center?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, I believe the main distinction is that the sound for the concerts is amplified, whereas if you have live music playing in a winery or a brewery, that's typically not amplified to the level that it is for these concerts.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Milt.
I have a question for the applicant. I just want to make sure, Mr. President, I should call you. Mr. President, so did I understand rightly that your proposal would allow members of the public who are not employees of Hayden to attend events in this space?
Yes, not only do we allow them to attend, we actually proactively send a communication out to
Right.
them, all, letting them know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
John?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Question for staff on, so what is the correct zoning terminology for an outdoor concert venue? Is it social event center or social event center as we've identified it here?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, there are a couple of different uses this could potentially be considered. Staff lean toward the social event center because the concerts are not the only type of event that they're intending to host. The code does also have a separate use that is like concert and dance hall.
Mr. Chair, follow up on that. So,
70s.
so the applicant could rezone, or they could move this
Could apply for.
to either one of these, a residential parcel nearby, and it'd be in compliance, and all those neighbors that had noise complaints would continue to have noise complaints, but there would be no recourse because it's an allowed use in that area. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, it's a conditionally allowed use in those zones that are in that area. So the commission would have the ability to place restrictions on things like hours of operation, the ability to have amplified noise outdoors, the number of attendance at events, all those types of things.
Mr. Chairman.
No, yeah.
A question for the city. So one option is to put conditions on this, for example, saying no amplified music, only not available to the general public. I guess my question is, what's the city's thinking on putting those types of conditions on it to try and mitigate it? So what was your thinking of deciding not to do that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, the impacts are only one part of the findings that have to be made for a special exception. Compliance with the comprehensive plan is another. The availability of other zoning in the area is another.
Right.
So
We have
just
to,
weren't
we
able
have to make
those
all
findings.
7 findings.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Chris?
Chair.
Yeah, Chris.
A question for staff. And Sabrina, how are we handling events now, like Tree 4, Live After 5, the Spectrum events, those kind of things that are outdoor amplified? They come into the clerk's office and get a permit?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, yes, the special events team through the city clerk's office reviews each application for each event individually and issues a decision one by one. Whereas this type of approval would grant them the ability to continue this use on the property.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mel.
Just one last question on my side. So if we granted this CUP, it would stick on this parcel regardless of who the owner is. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah.
So for, that special exception, one of the criteria being availability of land nearby. If, I think I'm probably taking it not quite as literally as the city. So if this parcel, this use isn't compatible with the adjacent neighborhood, that would mean that there's not really availability of land nearby because that conditional use likely may not be approved in a parcel nearby. So you can kind of infer, I guess, that there's not really land that's available within a nearby radius. Is that correct? Is that kind of the proper application of that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, I think the commission has discretion to interpret that finding.
Thank you.
Okay, good on questions, everybody? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead then. Thank you, everybody, for answering questions. We'll go ahead and open up the public testimony portion of this item. We had quite a few folks sign up here, and I know we have a few folks online as well. We'll do the in-person folks first, and then we'll move to the people online. We've got Sarah Minis. Yep, come on up. The podium's free. And again, as you guys testify tonight here, start with your name and address, please. And then everybody's gonna get 3 minutes to testify. And I'm gonna hold you to those 3 minutes, okay? So get close to your timer's right up here to your right on the big screen.
Right.
And then after Miss Minis, we have Alicia Walker and then Cinda Davis.
Hello, Commissioners and Chair. I am Sarah Menace, like Dennis the Menace, and I live in the Burton's Woods subdivision, just outside of the 500-foot notification for this applicant. I've lived there for 34 years. Our subdivision, Burton's Woods, is excellent. We have young families, we have people my age, and I have to say that on September 9th, I was the person who directed a complaint to the non-emergency police department, the dispatch, also to the mayor's office. And then on the 12th of September, I received a response from the mayor's office, which is why I'm here tonight. I was not notified about this CUP. Additionally, the mayor made us aware that it was just a 500-foot, and apparently all of homeowners associations were being notified. When I brought it to our homeowners association, they had not been notified. A couple of concerns I have. Back in January of 2022 on Facebook, and again, March of 2022, this Hayden Beverage Arena is being advertised as Performance Park. And with the Reckless Kelly concert in May of 2022, it was open to the public. Tickets were $45, $55. And yet the application for this CUP 2341 did not enter the process until June of 23 through today. That concerns me. It concerns a lot of the neighbors. We're greatly concerned about the valuation, and I can speak clearly about my experience. That night, it was stadium level speakers to the point of, again, I'm outside of this notification area. It was vibrating the canvas covering on our patio table. I subsequently learned that the Boise Police Department was there all day for the private event. That kind of concerns me as a taxpayer. If it's a private event, let's get private security. We are not very far from the Barber Park Education and Event Center. I have learned that the promoter talks about the Happy Birthday 50th in 2021. That was a test run for future rental events and concerts. We would have no input. We've been good neighbors for Hayden, and Hayden's a great employer, to once or twice a year for employee appreciation things. But to turn it over to a commercial setting, I feel very strongly that this is inappropriate, and I hope you will take that into consideration. Additionally, the city code enforcement issue on amplified noise states that it can be clearly heard within residence or at a distance of over 100 feet. Believe me, I live more than 100 feet from that arena.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, Alicia Walker. Okay, and then Cinda Davis, and then John Davis. And Jay. Sorry. We'll carry on.
Hello, my name is Alicia Walker and I live on 4094 South Oak Brook Way.
which is directly below Hayden Beverage. My husband Sean and I purchased our home back in 2018, and during our home search, we purposely sought out a quiet neighborhood. I suffer from chronic debilitating migraines that prevent me from living what most would consider a normal life. I get at least one migraine attack a week, and each lasts for a minimum of 48 to 72 hours. During my migraine attacks, I am highly sensitive to sound, scent, and light. I also experience extreme aura, nausea, and vomiting. And the only way that brings me any relief is laying down in a dark room, void of any light, sound, or scent. I essentially try to sleep the days away until the excruciating pain passes. It's imperative for my health that I live in a peaceful neighborhood. And if Hayden Beverage does turn into a special event center and continues to have concerts, weddings, and other large private events with amplified sound, my husband and I will be forced to consider, I'm sorry, I'm terrified by public speaking.
You're doing good.
My husband and I will be forced to consider to sell our home and move. I would like to speak on behalf of my husband, Sean, who is not able to be here today. He is a remote software engineer who works from home full-time. The loud noise caused by Hayden's events has affected his ability to concentrate and hold meetings. Despite his efforts to minimize the noise by closing all the windows, the loud nature of the past several events has created a challenging work environment for him. The most recent concert that Hayden held on September 9th, 2023 also included a late night teardown of the concert stage and large white event tent. The teardown went throughout the night and into early the next morning. My husband and I barely slept, and when we did manage to fall asleep, we were woken up abruptly to loud noises caused by their teardown crew. My husband had to work the next morning and was exhausted from getting no sleep the night prior. Hayden has hosted several concerts and weddings now. Each event has been very disruptive. The first concert back in July 2021 was performed by Reckless Kelly, a country rock band. That concert was so loud it vibrated our home's windows for hours. We as homeowners did not receive any prior notice of that event, so we had no idea what was going on or when it would stop. During that particular concert, I was experiencing a migraine attack and was not able to get the rest I needed to get better. As neighbors in very close proximity to Hayden, we were also never notified of their weddings being held that also held loud amplified music. Or we were also not notified of the second large Reckless Kelly concert held in May 2022. Frankly, I'm concerned for our property values, our sanity, and our quality of life in Willow Springs subdivision. Unfortunately, the amplified music reaches much farther than just our neighborhood. And as Southeast Boise residents, we don't benefit in any way living next to an event center. Instead, it only causes distress and annoyance. I hope you all can see today that if approved, this special event center will negatively affect many residents surrounding Hayden Beverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Cinda Davis, John Davis, Jay Peninen, Andy Mitchell. Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry, I have macular degeneration, so it's very hard for me to see each one of you.
Okay.
You threw a wrench in that. I know I'm not supposed to, I'm not supposed to have a photo, but this photo is so important to me because it shows exactly what we're dealing with. And I went to Walgreens and I had it blown up so you could see it.
You can hold it up. Yeah, we
Oh,
just
is
can't,
that-
we just can't
is-
accept
is
it.
that okay?
Yeah, it's okay,
Oh,
because
okay.
you'll be on the screen. We just can't accept anything. That's all.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Okay, I'm really scared to death, so,
You're doing just fine.
okay. My husband and I bought our home when it was brand new in February of 1989, and our subdivision was still being developed. As young Native Idahoans, we had a dream to raise our family in a peaceful Southwest Boise with all its natural wild beauty, because it was like that then. And it still is in a lot of ways. Our children were so fortunate to grow up in such a pleasant, bucolic area. It was such a joy to have them a part of a healthy, serene environment full of all kinds of wild birds and animals. We are very fortunate to live among a great number of like-minded neighbors who appreciate and respect that way of life as well. For over 30 years, we have coexisted peacefully with the companies that inhabited the large building right behind us. And that's the one that Hayden Beverage is in now. That's where I would like to show you my this is my home, and this is the concert venue. As you can see, it's huge, and so are the amplifiers and the speakers and the singers and the music and the crowd. Thanks for letting me show you that. Okay, so like I said, for 30 years, we've had no problem coexisting with the people that have had the buildings behind us, the wonderful businesses that have been there. And we also had no problem with Hayden Beverage whatsoever. They were wonderful and until this first concert. And that'll change the day Hayden Beverage held its first professional concert, and that and the
Time.
quality of our lives afterwards dramatically diminished. We cannot enjoy outdoor barbecues or outdoor movies with our little grandchildren because the concert has so much, it's just so disruptive. The noise is very disruptive.
Ms. Davis, I'm sorry, we're at our time. We're actually
Oh.
over your 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
Okay.
I
Well,
hate to cut people off.
oh,
but
no,
that's
that's
what code
understandable.
says.
I think I kind of made my point with the picture.
Yep.
So thanks.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. John Davis up next, and then Jay, I'm sorry, Panino. And then Zach Gray.
Hi,
Go ahead.
I'm John Davis, live at 2771 East Gloucester Street, pretty much directly below Hayden.
Mhm.
Like my wife said, for over 30 years, we got along fine with our industrial neighbors across the way until the event center. During the neighborhood meeting that's required by them in the part of their steps to get to this point, we made mention that there was no effort at all to get a hold of us before any of this started. So we'd have concerts. I'm sure many of us called the police. I know I did. Concert went over to almost at least past 10:30 and it was still going. There are ways to get a hold of us. I'm sure they know how to do that, but no effort was made. During the meeting of the neighborhood meeting, Dodds Hayden said he would only want 2 events a year. What does he call an event? He's had several events every year. So anything with amplified sound is an event to me, and we hear it all. If this is approved, I think they need to get it engineered, sound mitigation brought up, implemented, approved by affected neighbors, and also the city of Boise. Whether this means like a sound wall, like the freeways have, but I don't think you'd know the sound that we put up with. It's time to get a hotel for us. So please don't approve this.
Okay, thank you. Jay Panion, sorry, I've been working on your last name this whole time. I apologize. And then Zach Gray is up next, and then Tom Beznoska. Okay.
My name is Jay Panion, and I live at 2820 East Gloucester Street. And Hayden Beverages project plan, when I read that, when I read the project plan request, it does not really provide solutions for the quality of life issues for residents affected by its events. My home is just north of Hayden Beverage, and I can see the stage from my living room. Like when the concerts are going on, if I have my windows open, I gotta close them. And when I close them, I'm sitting in my living room, I still can't watch TV, can't read a book. So it's pretty disruptive. The proposed the proposed Hayden Beverage project plan does not provide a solution for these issues. In the project report, Hayden Beverage's sound mitigation plan is to move the stage on the property, and quoted from the project plan, it says, "I am hopeful this will help." Hope is not a plan. The solutions presented and tried have not improved from where my home was located. Another solution suggested to me when I called the promoter was, when you have concerts, you can leave your home, go for a hike. Well, doesn't this really, why should I be displaced from my home for an event? That doesn't seem just. I do know of some residents in my neighborhoods that are homebound. So when these concerts are going on, what are they to do? Do they just put up with it? What is their recourse? They don't have any. So that's kind of my kind of issues with this. If Hayden's Beverages request is approved, how many amplified music events will be allowed? They say 1 or 2, but could this expand, be beyond this? Could there be ones during the week, weekends? So I think if more concerts were to occur, what recourse do we have as residents? We don't have any. We have no say. So that doesn't seem really democratic or just to me. It sure seems like a lot of these issues have not been resolved, and Hayden Beverage does not have solutions for them. So what are we to do? So that's kind of my kind of issues with this. So, and I really hope you take my points to light and really deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach Gray. And then Tom Beznoska.
Good evening, everyone.
Sorry, can you get your name and address, please, just for the transcript.
My name is Zach Gray, and I live at 2859 East Gloucester Street.
Thank you.
So my home sits on the canal side. And when you stand on my patio, now they did lower the stage, or they switched the stage style up from the first concert to the other. Now, even though I can stand on my patio, look up, see my trees, see a stage. And I'm all for employees being appreciated. We have a family business here in town as well. We do the same thing. You guys, the Hayden happens to have a parcel of land that they can utilize as a park, utilize it for the employees. That's fine. No amplified music, shut it down at 7, appreciate the hell out of the people. That's great. But I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. We purposely bought that home because it had no backyard neighbors. Therefore, we had no noise. We had nothing coming through our back side of the house. And trying to put down a 2-year-old during a rock concert is harder than it sounds. We've had cops show up at our house for noise complaints, which then I had to pull them back into the street and have them look upwards so they could see what was happening. And then they asked me if they had a permit. And then to tell the officer that I didn't plan the party. The neighborhood that we live in is established, and my wife and I chose that property because of that fact. Now, I know that they haven't met all of the requirements due to processing through the CUP, or however you guys want to word that, but that's my complaint. And we do live in a home next to 2 elderly women who are alone. So having that racket going on does make them uncomfortable, makes them nervous. They don't know what people are going to do. Concerts, drinking, noises, beer bottles thrown over the canal, because who doesn't want to see if they could make it, right? Other than that, those are my main concerns, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear us out.
Okay, thank you. And then Tom Beznoska.
My name is Tom Beznaska, and I live at 3200 East Boise Avenue. And I am here to speak out against this conditional use permit for Hayden Beverage. The last concert that went on there was absurdly loud. It was obscene how loud it was. Hayden Beverage doesn't have the support of the community like they claim they do. Nobody that I live next to supports what they're trying to do. The last function that they had was a private party for Agra Beef for their 50th anniversary. They had a big name, a national brand musician come in with 6 semi trucks full of gear and set up this massive stage. It was a private party, but yet we all heard the music. The music was so loud that there was nowhere in our house that you could go to get away from the bass. You could feel it in your chest. I was in the master closet, in the master bedroom on the back side of the house with all the doors closed, and I could still feel the bass in my chest. They are asking for conditional use permits for 1, maybe 2, maybe 5, who knows, 10, 20 concerts. Let's be clear here, this is about money. This is not to provide a service to the community. This is about profits. Boise is not lacking in venues for concerts, for live music. There's plenty of places for bands to play in Boise. Where Hayden Beverage is currently, they're zoned for a business that is basically shipping and receiving hard goods. Why they are trying to get into the music and concert and the music and entertainment industry is for one reason, it's for more money. Their quest for more money hurts the people that live around Hayden Beverage. It's not zoned for concerts. It's zoned for shipping and receiving goods. The concerts have gotten more frequent. They've gotten louder. The last concert was so loud that we literally took all the pictures off the wall. Our windows were rattling and we had to leave for the night. What they're trying to do with these giant concerts, these big names, these national brands, these huge concerts, it hurts our sanity, it hurts our community, it hurts our neighbors. It lowers our standard of living. It lowers our property values.
Understood. I'm sorry, you're over your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Please consider not approving this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that is all the folks that signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone else that would like to testify in the audience tonight, here in person? Okay, very good. Mr. Danley? Okay.
I'll be brief.
I need your name and address for the record, please. Okay.
There we go. Okay. Chris Danley, 2903 East Gloucester. That is directly next to my house. You can see the stage. New information from what you have already heard. The image that you see, specifically the yellow line, I'm not going to play you the audio. It's an iPhone. You're going to get the greatest quality of it. But during sound check, middle of the day, prior to that, that line is almost 500 feet. The walkers live just beyond that yellow line. Clearly audible. Every single lyric is heard. There's not a problem. That's not even crowd noise. And although, by the way, my time years ago in the United States Navy taught me to be an acoustic operator, which meant I learned a little something about sound. At night, sound travels farther because change in pressures occur. So those distances go even further than what you would see even during the middle of the day. skip ahead. I want to add this piece of information. What you've not heard in the packet order this evening, that red parcel is in the corner on Boise Avenue. That was granted a permit, and that has now turned into a reception venue. It's a private home, and on Fridays and Saturdays, this past Saturday, they just had another wedding event that goes till 10 o'clock at night. We came home from a long trip and was greeted with that, no problem, could hear it. We're 700 feet away. We got a sound ordinance issue already happening in this particular vicinity. One other piece I wanted information, why are there not more people here maybe? Well, you can see in the upper left, there's the notification ring, 500 feet, nothing wrong with that. That's our city policy. But look just beyond the 500 foot to the east, and what do you see? That entire neighborhood. So in other words, that entire neighborhood was not notified, and the sound direction coming from the concerts and those speakers goes directly into those streets. I will tell you, having seen that from this concert specifically, the sound clearly goes all the way out to Boise Avenue. So that entire subdivision is totally going to be hitting the brunt of every and all loud concert venue or event that occurs. I'm in agreement with my neighbor, Zach. You want to have some food trucks up there, do your thing. You want to have some daytime events, some canopy things, fine. It's the concert venue, it's the concert issue that's mostly really a subject here. The question that I would have you consider is, what if they fall out of business love with a promoter and a new promoter comes in? And the next thing you know, they're fans of EDM, right? We have dance venue, or dance events that are happening up there. And we don't want to just go by two. We've already been granted more than that if it's not codified. So how is it and who is it that enforces it? Because I'm pretty sure that it's not fair that the residents of this neighborhood be the one to do that. So if all of these questions can go unanswered and unmitigated, then to me, at least the answer is pretty clear on how and the fate of this application goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we're gonna go to folks online unless I have any last minute people here in person. Okay. Looks like we have 4 folks with their hands up online. We'll just start at the top of the list. Mr. Daniel Melvin up first.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Hello.
Hi there. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, my name is Dan Melvin. I live at 2477 East Gloucester Street, Boise, 83706. I'm a resident of Burton's Woods subdivision, and our home sits below the New York Canal, just west of the Hayden Beverage location defined in the petition. First and foremost, the potential impact on one of the valley's most peaceful neighborhoods is concerning, to say the least. My family's been exposed firsthand to these concerts, and it's caused substantial disruption. The noise levels, particularly during that recent Saturday that everyone's talked about, were unacceptable and left many neighbors greatly distressed, not to mention their pets. While it's understandable that Hayden may host or want to host 1 to 2 events a year on the property, changing the zoning permit for additional events is not acceptable, as it threatens the peace and character of this neighborhood and others around it. As I mentioned, I live up against the New York Canal, immediately adjacent to the west. This area is a well-known flight pathway and migration area for a host of birds, waterfowl, raptors, as well as bobcats, foxes, deer, and other animals. Furthermore, the proposed zoning change, if approved, may have a lasting negative impact, as others have said, on the value of our homes. And the introduction of a commercial event venue with more frequent loud events, as well as a significant increase in traffic, is definitely going to diminish the appeal of any of these neighborhoods that are adjacent to this property and some that are not. Our home sits roughly 2,000 feet from the Hayden property, and the sound levels are incredibly destructive. The full extent of the noise impact from this request has most assuredly not been adequately examined. In conclusion, as the gentleman earlier said, make no mistake about this, this is about selling more alcoholic beverages and making money, period. I have no problem with either of those. However, as the gentleman also mentioned, there are more than enough venues in this town that can host these types of events. So as such, I respectfully request that the commission not only denies this petition to add the venue dates, but also to carefully consider any future conditional use requests for any one-time concert or any amplified event from Hayden, as this greatly impacts the neighboring communities and the residents each and every time one of these events is held. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Staff going to Sean Marsh next. Okay. Mr. Marsh, can you hear us? Sorry, Mr. Marsh, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
All right, excellent. Just took a second. My name is Sean Marsh. I live at 2465 East Ferguson Street, also in the Burton's Woods neighborhood. And I'm dialing in today to support this conditional use permit. Having participated in some of these hearings in the past, it seems that the only people that come out are the naysayers, the people that are against anything new, anything possibly different in their neighborhood. I read through the denial and frankly, it didn't make a lot of sense that a well-managed outdoor music venue would cause more issues than I think a dog kennel is allowed under that zoning. I believe that was on the cover page. And I understand that Hayden, may need to do more mitigation, but we've lived in this neighborhood for 9 years. We can hear when the events are going on, have never attended one, and have never had it, disrupt us. Understandably, if we were closer than the 500-600 meters we are, that could be different. But I think there's an opportunity here to mitigate those negative impacts and have a real asset in this community. So I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Up next, got Dodds Hayden up next.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, can you hear me?
We can. Hello.
Right. Thank you. First of all, I don't envy your the utilitarian calculi you have to do on these things. I think that it's really important to me to be a good neighbor. As Andy mentioned, we have done things with lights and trucks to try to limit our impact on our neighbors. Similarly, with these shows, we have tried to limit in that to limit to 2 shows for the entire year of concerts. We limit those to weekends, and and the noise is over by 10. So we really do want to be good neighbors. On the utilitarian side, we've heard from 6 or 8 people today that don't like it. You'll see in the packet that Andy brought that we've got a couple dozen letters from people who love it and appreciate that. And and it's shown by the 1,000 or so people who show up for the shows when we have them. I am sensitive to our neighbors. And to Mrs. Walker with her migraine, my wife has migraines. I totally get it. And I think it'd be one thing if we were doing a live after 5 every week, or we're doing botanical gardens, or outlaw field with something, 2 or 3 times a month. Again, we're talking twice a year. And I think on the zoning stuff, I think Ms. Moore brought up the great point, right? If it doesn't work for our lot, how could it work for the lot that's right next to us that could potentially be zoned for it? Secondly, on the equal or reduced impact, I think that there are plenty of things that could be done that would make a lot of noise throughout the year versus the noise that we make on twice a year, for example, or backup alarms, and we tried to mitigate or get rid of those. So I guess one thing I would ask, and I don't know this code stuff very well, but on this exemption, we're happy with the conditional exemption. So happy with the condition of only doing 2, could be the number of events a year to limit to 2, could be the number, the days of the week, the hours. We're happy to meet those, to be a good neighbor, but to take away the benefit we're getting to thousands of people who love these shows, for 1 or 2 days of some discomfort for half a dozen or dozen people. For that reason, I would allow you to let this exemption go through, and I'm happy to stand for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Really, I just need your address, if you don't mind, please, for the record.
My home address or work address, or doesn't matter?
Either one is totally fine.
All right, work address is 2910 East Amity Road.
Great.
Boise.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. And looks like we've got one more hand up online. Martin Liberal.
Yes, I'm online. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can. Hello.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Martin Liberal. I live at 2470 East Woods End Court in Boise, Idaho 83706 with my wife and 2 young children. I actually serve as the president of Burton's Woods HOA. Some of our members are actually there physically and some have spoken virtually, representing 67 homes in our peaceful residential community, some of which, as I mentioned, are there today. I stand virtually before you to express our association's strong opposition, at least most of us, maybe not all of us, to the rezoning application of Hayden Beverage property, which is in close proximity to our neighborhood. First, I do want to acknowledge the value of community engagement and the commendable effort made by Hayden Beverage to host 1 or 2 employee appreciation concerts each year. Recognizing and rewarding the hard work of their employees is praiseworthy, and I do support at least such endeavors. However, I and many of our HOA members believe that permitting a special exemption to allow additional special events in our quiet neighborhood is unacceptable and would have a detrimental impact on our community's quality of life. Our concerns are really just rooted in the fact that existing concerts, while held sporadically for employee gatherings, are audibly disruptive to our residents. I did a GPS line between the concert and my house. It's about 2,500 feet, so I'm 5 times outside that notification zone, but it still impacts my quality of life during those days. Hayden Beverage has only sometimes been respectful to the 10 a.m. noise ordinance. However, myself and many others have young children who go to bed at 8 o'clock or earlier. Their sleep stands to be disrupted, not to mention working professionals who work odd shifts. You heard from several today. Allowing this rezoning at Hayden Beverage would create a disturbance beyond an acceptable once or twice per year event, despite, I think, what we're hearing. Disrupting peaceful nights our community members enjoy, either on their patio or at our private park. Disrupting our children's sleep, eroding a sense of security and peacefulness that our community cherishes. We have all invested in our homes and our neighborhoods with the expectation that it would remain a quiet and family-friendly environment. I believe granting this rezoning application would jeopardize that expectation and possibly harm the property value of our homes. In conclusion, while I and others do support Hayden Beverage's efforts to recognize their employees' hard work a couple of times a year, I oppose the rezoning application. We urge this committee to consider the well-being and rights of the hundreds of residents in neighboring communities, as you saw in the images outside of that 500-foot radius. We aren't against venues having outdoor special events. We just don't want them in our backyard. There's other options in the area. We respectfully request that you deny this application, help us preserve the peace and tranquility that defines Southeast Boise. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, I think that does it for everybody online. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public testimony portion of this item. We'll bring it back before the applicant here for rebuttal. I hope 5 minutes is adequate for rebuttal.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank
Okay.
you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Sorry for not addressing you that way earlier.
You're good.
So a couple points of clarification. I think many of the comments you heard were around the Reckless Kelly concert. I fully admit we did not do that one right. That was a mistake. We learned our lessons. Second point of clarification, there's reference to hiring a promoter. The promoter is actually Mila. She's seen right here. She's not a promoter, so to speak. She's a personal friend of mine I've known for a decade. When I found out we were going to do this, I said, I don't know how to do this. I want to make sure we're doing it right with the city, with the state, and with residents. So she had experience with that. So she's a full-time realtor. She does this promotion for us to help us with the venue. Also to the comment of not notifying neighbors, I apologize. We were trying to follow the intent of the legislation as it was in front of us, which said 500 feet. We would have gone out to 3,000 feet if that was the legislation or if someone had given us that input. And I think we have expanded that since then. So again, we've made some errors in how to do this. I think we've addressed them one at a time as they've come up and tried to be a proactive community member. And then I guess last two things in closing. One is, I think what I've heard over and over is a concern of if this permit is authorized, that it opens the floodgates for us and whoever owns the property to just have ongoing shows. And that is certainly not our intent. And I think Mr. Hayden said it. We are more than happy to have, I don't know how government works, but mitigation in there that limits it to 2 events a year, or is a conditional permit upon our ownership of the land. And should we sell the land, that conditional permit is up for review or is suspended, or again, whatever is in the permit of the law. Our goal here is to work with a neighbor, work with the city, provide a venue that adds value to the community and does that. And then I guess in closing, just I think we misunderstood one of the rules. We were under the impression that if we had a cover letter from Dodds and printed out all the positive comments, that we would be able to turn those into the commission. I don't know if that's a misunderstanding on our part or if that's still an opportunity, but we do have 27 residents who did submit in written form a positive comment towards the permit.
Okay, well, we can't accept the written because it's not in the record, right? It's not in the public record for everybody to
Understood.
to read ahead of time, right? So we could accept it. We can talk with staff if it moves forward or if there's another appeal, you can at that point give it to staff.
Mr. Chair. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Hi,
We're still in rebuttal.
Mila Perry, 5072 East Fescue. Sabrina, did I misunderstand that you had said if I brought a packet with the cover letter that we could submit those?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my email, it's at the commission's discretion on whether they want to accept that much written comment. You could have incorporated that into slides or something for your presentation, and this will go on to council, so you can provide it at that time as well.
Okay, and then on one other note, for the first for all of the ones that we have done, the 2 Reckless Kelly and the American Aquarium shows that were, and the private hate agri-beef one, the amplified sound shows, they have all been permitted with the special events committee. All of the departments that I always work with give me their criteria, tell me who I'm supposed to contact, whether it's neighbors, HOAs, garbages, ACHD. I have to have all of those boxes checked. You guys all know this takes time. This isn't something I think, we think of in 1 week and then we decide to have a concert. There have been some missteps, and even talking to the special events committee with Kelly Frank with some of the HOAs that aren't active or didn't get an email or they didn't check their email. I live in Columbia Village and I know the HOA guy, and he even said, I didn't even read it. Like, I'm trying my best and we're doing our due diligence. I get on the Nextdoor app. I do on Facebook. I sent out 80 something mailers for this last one based on the addresses that were given to me by the city. So we are trying our best to get the word out to everybody that we can and follow the rules that the city gives us with the special events exemptions and permits.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and bring this back before the commission to render a decision. Again, we're talking about CUP 23-41.
I've made all the hard ones, so you guys vote tonight.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we deny CUP 23-41 for the reasons stated in the staff report.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yep. I'm going to motion to deny by Commissioner Moore with a second by Commissioner Mooney. Jennifer?
So, Mr. Chair, so I think the main reason for my decision, besides those reasons stated in the staff report, we mentioned a few kind of similar venues, one being Botanic Gardens, Outlaw Field, the other being Alive After 5. BSU Stadium was mentioned too. All of those venues are very different than this particular venue. Those venues, BSU is kind of in a bowl. Alive After 5 is bounded by the Grove Plaza, Botanic Gardens is kind of tucked up against the foothills. This venue in particular is situated on, don't get me wrong, a beautiful piece of land overlooking the entire city, but that also comes with the challenge of broadcasting to the entire city. And I think just looking at those kind of similar venues, looking at this site, how it's set up, that's one of the main challenges. And to me, when I'm looking at this table of allowed uses, it's similar to some of those wineries with, the live music and all that stuff going. It's a more kind of low key sort of use and things like that. And thinking about those uses, I'm having a hard time getting to a more heavily broadcast, more noise heavy use for this particular site, even though it makes sense to bring the community in, share the beautiful view, the beautiful location. It just doesn't seem quite set up for that just yet.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Just before we move forward, I just want to be clear here. We are just recommending to City Council in this instance, because this is a special exception. I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah. So assuming, as long as you're okay with this, Jennifer, instead of a motion to deny, it's a motion to recommend denial. Good.
Good.
Okay. And John as the seconder, are you good with that?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, a little cleanup on my side there. John, did you have some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is my first use of the special exception in my time here on the commission. And so I was really swayed by Mr. Berg's and the Neighbor Association's testimony, which made it very clear the code has all kinds of hoops that the applicant in this case has to jump through. And I just don't see that they've done that. And our job is to uphold the code on behalf of the council and the recommendation to them. So that's my support for the motion. Most importantly, I thought that opening this up to the public is really where it became problematic for the applicant. I mean, the great use of the venue for families and employee recognition and all that is great, but it didn't. I think it needs to stop there, and that's kind of what the code is clearly laying out.
Okay, thanks, John.
Mr. Chair.
Chris, yeah.
Andy, thanks for coming. I know you had a tough night ahead of you, but I will just say that I know the Hayden Beverage folks, having worked with them in the past in a previous life, and if anybody can get this sorted out, it would be them. I know Andy's crew, runs all of the outdoor stuff for Tree Ford and Alive After 5 and the Spectrum, some of the things I noticed before. And so they do have a long time in this community hosting outdoor events. And so I will be supporting my fellow commissioners here, but I do have confidence that you guys want to move forward with this, that you have the ability to figure it out. So.
Okay, thanks, Chris. No, nothing? Okay. I want to thank everybody for the testimonies tonight and the feedback and the input on both sides. So I appreciate just the honesty, clarity. Sometimes these can be contentious, and I appreciate everybody just keeping a calm demeanor and behaving themselves. So well done for everybody there. I'm also going to be supporting the motion. I understand, Mr. Mitchell, I get it, right? But I'm going to side with the motion, and I agree with Commissioner Moore's, comments that there's the code piece to this, right? And codes developed to make like pieces work together adjacent to one another. And I think your core business, it works in this instance, right? You're there, you're light industrial, it works with your adjacent neighbors, right? But the concert venue just gets a little bit too far out of whack with the neighborhood and the adjacent uses. And when you look at the other similar venues, like Commissioner Moore stated, they are against the foothills or tucked into other areas where you guys are a little bit more exposed. And I can certainly understand how the sound would carry in the instance where you guys are. So, I'm going to be supporting the motion. I also agree with Commissioner Blanchard that maybe there's a path forward. You can work through some other details and maybe work it out. But I think where it stands right now, I'm gonna be supporting the motion, and we'll see where it goes from here. Okay. All right. Milt, you good? Okay. Okay, we got a motion to recommend denial of CUP 23-41, and the motion again was by Commissioner Moore with a second by Commissioner Rooney. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break before our last item. All right. Well, the house, we cleaned the house out.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
You guys, so you
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're. Yeah.
I don't have to say anything.
Tim just,
I mean, literally.
Tim just couldn't stay away. It's been like 6 months, right, Tim? It's like, I gotta get back over here. All right. Last item tonight is number 6, ZOA 23-2, the city of Boise. City of Boise proposes to amend Boise City Code Title 11, also known as the Development Code, to correct minor spelling errors, grammatical errors, and provide minor code clarifications. And we're going to hear from staff first. Mr. Tim Keen's at the podium, but then we have the whole crew again back here tonight. Whole band's back together. All right.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you. This is, we anticipated coming back to you in October with these changes. I'll very quickly go through a reminder of the process, the amendment that you have before you tonight, our recommendation, and then a few points about our next steps and implementation of the code. The Planning and Zoning Commission does not need a reminder of this, but others that might be watching could. This is our process this year to adopt a new zoning ordinance for the city of Boise, and included public hearings by the Planning and Zoning Commission in April, and the new ordinance was unanimously recommended at that time. We then went to public hearings with the city council in June, and the council unanimously adopted the ordinance. We're now in the process of preparing for the implementation, which will be December 1st. And when council adopted the ordinance or voted to approve it on June 15th, among the things they included in their motion was that staff come back to council in November with any kind of cleanup of the ordinance that was necessary. This, as you know, is a 600-page or so ordinance. It's a piece of law, and we've been working with it since council adopted it and have found adjustments that need to be made, spelling corrections, formatting issues within the ordinance itself. So we've got a collection of things that we'd like to just clean up in the ordinance before it goes live on December 1st. The application before you is this one, to correct minor spelling and grammatical errors and provide clarifications in the new Title 11, the city's code, which is our new zoning ordinance. The application includes a summary of the changes that were made, that redline to show where in the document, I'm not going to go through these, of course, but where the edits to address minor inconsistencies are, where the formatting issues are, and where we've got typos. Since we sent the report to the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 2nd, we did find some other edits to make. These are all minor things. None of them change the substance of the ordinance. Again, spelling, formatting issues within the ordinance itself. That's what these additional edits amount to, are more of these cleaning up of the ordinance that we've been seeking to do before it goes live. So our recommendation is that of course, this proposed zoning ordinance amendment that's before you tonight is appropriate, as it just fixes inconsistencies and errors within the ordinance that was adopted by City Council in June. And it's consistent with our comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. We're recommending approval of these edits tonight. It will go to the city council in November as requested with those changes to clean up the ordinance before it's live on December 1st. Some other things about implementation. The city of Boise is working on a whole new design for the planning website that will correspond with the new ordinance going live on December 1st. So it's easier to follow. The Acela system, which is the city's permitting system, is being reconfigured to follow the new processes. We've got an enhanced development tracker. We'll be very closely monitoring the performance of the new code. We talked about this in front of the Planning Commission and City Council, that we want this new code to be successful, so we have to constantly monitor its performance. We do expect to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council with changes, with edits that we learn of that we need as a community, as we're working with this ordinance no later than a year from December 1st of this year. And I'm not going to get into that now unless you'd want to. It's about the new process that's coming up. But I do want to remind everyone that, again, we discussed this before the Planning Commission in April and then Council in June, that we feel very good about the ordinance that we adopted this year. We feel like it's, I said before, perfect, maybe close to perfect in terms of the allocation of zoning districts and how we address the city's basic growth, where we have density, where density is helpful, how that density is tied to the transportation goals that we have as a city, how we're including in this new ordinance the kind of mix of housing types that we need as a city. And we've been saying so strongly that we need that diversity of housing types. We think all that's really, if it's not perfect, really close to perfect. What we know we'll have to keep working on, of course, are the technical details in terms of implementation within that basic structure. I've said this before. In 1966, we weren't experts in sprawl. We became experts in sprawl. Now we have to become experts in growing in the opposite direction. And so we just have to be cognizant of the fact that that will, the technical details of it will be things that we'll be working on for years. But the good news is we got the structure right. And so that's why I say you'll see us again no later than a year from now, just as we've lived with it for 12 months to see what kind of, based on those performance tracking we'll be doing, what kinds of adjustments do we feel, if any, we need at that point to make it work better and ensure that those incentives that are baked into the ordinance are successful, as successful as they can be. So that's what we have for you tonight.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Tim. Well, we don't really have anybody left in the audience, so I think we can go ahead and, yeah, we can go ahead and ask any questions for Tim or staff. He has the whole band here, so we can get in the weeds if you guys want.
Mr. Chair.
Chris, yeah.
Director Keen, will we get details on the development tracker, the operations dashboard, and the evaluation plan, what those are going to consist of? Are we going to get a briefing on that in detail?
We're actually going to do a briefing with the Planning and Zoning Commission and all of the boards that we have. I'm looking back to confirm, yes, on all of that. So a couple of these slides I had here start to get into that, but the hour's kind of late in terms of implementation and what those measures are that we'll be tracking and all those things that you mentioned, Commissioner. And so we wanted to do kind of a work session with each of the boards that hold hearings. So that would be the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Design Review Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission, just to see how this transition to the new code is going to go, and then how we're going to be working once we get into the new code.
Great. Anything else for Tim, guys? Okay. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited, Tim. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch this unfold, right? And
yeah,
appreciate all the staff's hard work on the effort so far. A lot more hard work to come, but I think we can do it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, John.
Crystal made some last meeting that your plan is to kind of go with old code till February and might have to, could you go over that again?
I've got it here actually in a, so we goes live on December 1st. What we expect is that through February, we'll be working through old code cases. So the goal is would be to work through those existing code cases by the end of February. There may be some that are still, not done yet. So it could move past the end of February, but this is conceptually what we're thinking is we try to work through those by the end of February. And then each of our commissions that hold hearings and make decisions would start new code cases in March. So that's the plan, so that the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this is part of what we'll discuss in a work session with you, but the Planning and Zoning Commission would start to hear the new code cases in March.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. All right. Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
I think we'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
move we recommend approval of ZOA 23-2 with all the terms and conditions and reasons in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, great. Motion to approve, recommend approval, and a second. Any discussion? Good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call the roll.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Danley,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.